Here I am again, podcasting, live casting, live streaming, whatever you call it. And I don't have many of my co-hosts with me today, but we've got, but hopefully they're coming. And then we're going to be talking to Amber Greenlee, who is an old friend of mine from Modern Tales days when, I used to run my Puful webcomic on Modern Tales with a lot of other amazing people. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I was hoping Chris is going to be here because he's written us a new theme tune, which I guess I'm just going to play that now quickly so we can have a listen. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Oh, how do I do that? All right. Oh, it's disappeared. Okay. All right. This isn't working out as well as I hoped. Just a minute now. Just a minute. Here you go. All right. Here it is. All right.
Theme song for Chuck Whelon showy. He asked me to write one, but I stole from David Bowie. Here's the theme song. Chuck Whelon is the best. We have lots of hosts, but we're running out of guests. Leave the August done. Leave the August done. Beyond the Chuck Whelon show. Whoa, 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 whoa.
If you're gonna have a show, you gotta have more guests, sweetie.
All righty, so there we go. That was it. And here's Chris. All right, hi. All right, hi Amber.
Hey.
Hi Chris. Hello. I just
Chris.
played the theme tune.
I just made it. Hey Amber. Hey Chuck.
Yeah, you just made it down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amber.
It was kind of a Bowie-ish. I enjoyed the theme song. That was fun.
It was totally ripped off from Bowie. You know? Like, yeah, it's a total ripoff.
You know,
Yes.
who was it? It was Picasso that said that good artists borrow, great artists steal, but I think he took it from someone else. And there's even like the Banksy thing where he crosses out Picasso and writes Banksy. So
Yes, I love it.
I always say if you're gonna steal from somebody good, don't steal from anyone mediocre. I mean, if you're gonna do it.
yeah.
If you're gonna rob a store, don't get the Circle K, you know.
Well,
Don't
you
get
know, the artist Matt Bush started out that way. He was basically a Drew Struzan clone. And, you know, now he's evolved into his own style and stuff. But when he started out, it's like, oh, that's because Drew's getting older and he's pretty expensive now. I understand.
Yeah. So wait, who's that? Matt Bush?
Matt Bush. Oh, you don't know Matt Bush. Here, let me put it in.
Yeah, neither do I. But by the way, I'm
Oh.
not really like a cartoonist illustrator person. I'm more of a music person. So
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
very
let me find his website. He's quote unquote the rock star of illustration is what it says when you Google him.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
well,
this
that's
is
grand.
yeah, this is his website.
Feel free at any time, guys.
he-
If you wanna jump in and
he
stuff, ask
is
questions,
a,
or just if you wanna take a-
trained artist from Art Center and stuff like that, but he has contracts with, gosh, you know, Disney. He has contracts with, you know, Star Wars and Marvel and that whole umbrella. And he's done work with DC. He's done book covers. You know, like I know I'm here as your guest and stuff like that, but if I can throw some love to an awesome artist, Matt Bush is an awesome artist.
Oh yeah. All right. Oh yeah. There we
he
go.
looks like a rock star too.
Yeah, well, you know, he's a nice guy. Matt's a really nice guy. He does like all the convention circuits and stuff like that. He does commissions for people. So, you know, he's really approachable.
Yeah, he looks like a guy that would be in a band with me in like the 90s.
So what's new for us?
He might have been in a band with you in the 90s.
He might have, or we might
Yeah.
have played the same venue. We might have shared stages. He's a musician too.
Yeah. You know, Matt's a cool guy. He, like I said, he started out as an artist trained at Art Center, and so he was there when Drew Struzan was teaching portraiture. And so he learned all of his techniques and everything. So when he went out into the world, he took all those techniques and, like, if you look at his early stuff, Like if you were to look up stuff from about 2000s or so, it looks just like Drew Struzan stuff. Maybe you should bring up Drew Struzan.
Yeah,
people
let's
can
bring up
see.
Drew Struzan. Yes, I know him. That was a good documentary about him available recently. But yeah, Drew Struzan, I guess like that's probably one of his most icons is the Star Wars trilogy.
Back to the Future. He did. I have a book in there of like all of his posters.
Blade
so
Runner.
is he kind of famous for like one sheets?
Yeah,
I mean,
he does movie posters.
Yeah,
like the Thing poster, you know, the one where the glowing out of the face for the Thing. He had from prompt to delivery 24 hours, and so they basically said, yeah, we want a picture of this, and then he delivered it within 24 hours.
He's gonna wreck it for everyone. Don't
He
let that
has
be the
wrecked
new
it.
standard.
Don't
Don't
worry.
let that be the new standard.
Don't worry, he's retired. Okay, he did this way back in the 80s. You know, when
It's like all you need is like one dude like putting an album out in like a month, and then the industry's like, oh well, they did it in a month. Everybody can do it in a month.
Well, again, Drew Struzan is, you know, he's been doing this since the 70s. He did like the posters for Jaws. You know, he did the original poster for Star Wars, the first poster for Star Wars. There's a great picture I have in one of my Star Wars books of Mark Hamill standing in front of a hand-painted sign at the first San Diego Comic Con, like in 1976, I think. And Drew Struzan did that hand-painted sign. Like, you know, he's been doing stuff for forever. The guy's like amazing. He's retired now, so he's no longer competition for us artists.
I like the one where he put George Lucas in the background. I've never seen that before. It's like George Lucas looking like model perfect in the background of that Star Wars poster. That's great.
Well,
or not. Yeah, am I getting that right, George Lucas?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, George Lucas. Yeah, Chris is
Yeah.
the whole Star Wars, Star Trek thing. So
I get the whole.
some of that stuff to him. Yeah, George Lucas made Star Wars, and then he sold it to Disney for like $1 billion.
His soul.
I get all. Sometimes I scramble the big directors up. You know what I mean? De Palma, Scorsese.
Not me.
I'll scramble them up.
No, not me. I love film. And so like I could talk to you for hours about like horror or foreign films or, you know, drama or noir.
What do you have for like good recommendations like lately? I'm making a media.
What are you
list.
looking for? What are you looking for?
Like
what kind of mood?
I was kind of a film major, so I like anything that's kind of good.
Well, Fifth Element's always in my top 10. You know, it shifts, but it's always there.
Wait,
Why is it so high? I like Fifth Element a lot. I loved it. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's like the first movie I've seen that's really like heavy metal magazine. You know,
well,
like,
that was Baz Luhrmann's, or no, it wasn't Baz Luhrmann. I'm trying to remember the director.
Mobius designed it a lot. The artist Mobius.
Well, yeah, it was inspired definitely by like heavy metal and all of those sorts of things. And what's interesting is that when he wrote it as the first part of a trilogy. And so he planned on actually making 2 other movies with it, but the 2 other movies have just never been made.
Okay, so they're out there waiting to be made.
The scripts are done.
Oh wait, it's Luc Besson, isn't it?
Yeah, Luc Besson. Thank you. I was trying to think, and I'm like, Baz Luhrmann? No, that's Moulin Rouge. That's not correct. And so
Yeah,
I shall be wrong on the internet.
In England, we just go Luc Besson, but yeah, Besson, probably more correct.
Gary Oldman.
Facility scheduling.
Oh yeah, Gary Oldman. That was great. Gary Oldman, early Gary Oldman, like doing his sort of psychopath for a more popular audience there.
Oh,
and yet
Chris Tucker.
And yet Gary Oldman showing off the gun is like the most entertaining bit of like shock media. You know, because you're like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to destroy people. Like, you know, you could see it like used by police or something, and you know, there goes the crowd. And
Yes.
but you're sitting there like excited because he's excited.
Yes.
I haven't seen this probably since around the time it came out.
Oh, go see it. Yeah, watch it.
I mean,
it aged well.
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the stuff you see it, and only maybe 10 years have passed, and you're like, oh, they couldn't make that today.
No,
Like,
yeah.
What was it, Tropic of Thunder? I was watching it. I think it's Tropic Thunder. Morton Downey Jr. and who else is in there? Ben
that's
Stiller.
a Ben Stiller movie. Yeah, he directed it.
And I don't think you could make that movie today. I think everyone would red light it or the opposite of green light it.
Blazing Saddles.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. And I haven't seen that for years either. But
yeah, Blazing Saddles is a movie you could not make today.
No, and you know the kids don't want to watch it. I tried to get my son and his friends to watch it a little while ago. He's a little more. He's 19 now, so he's getting a bit older. But you know, a couple of years ago, they wasn't interested really. So no, like it starts off. It's a bit bumpy at the beginning because there's a lot of sort of Mel Brooks, and you know, it takes a little while to get along. Like nowadays, they want a movie that just sort of starts right away, and they want to understand it like right away. And if they're not like going on from the beginning.
Is another one of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of context in the beginning of that movie. I mean, you start out with the chain gang making a railroad, and then when they discover quicksand, they basically just send in the black guys. Hey, you go in, right? And when they get stuck in there, they don't call them that throughout the whole movie. And that's another reason why you couldn't make it today. But they get stuck in there, and then the white foreman and stuff. He's like, "Oh no, we got to save the cart," and they pull out the cart and leave in the black guys. The thing is like when I remember seeing that movie for the first time when I was like 10 years old or something like that, and not getting it because you have no context of racism. You don't understand why, and like asking my mom, like, well, why is it funny that those guys were left in? And my mom's like, okay, sit down. She like explained like all this dark history in America's past, and like why you can't say certain things, why you can't repeat certain things from this movie outside of the house and shit.
Good
like that.
going, Mom.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could translate today though that they're just low-paid workers. Again, today the company would probably still save the cart versus the people.
And maybe that's why Mel Brooks is timeless, is because he still he still lands today.
I think it's great. I mean, that's brilliant.
He got an EGOT.
Watching it with my parents as a teenager, my mother just found the whole baked bean scene absolutely hilarious. She didn't stop laughing about that for about a week. I don't know why. That was so funny. I was like, okay, that's just a lot of fart jokes, but for her, that was hitting the spot.
So it includes things.
Well, and there's lowbrow humor and there's highbrow humor. Highbrow humor is a lot of intellectual type stuff, puns. Things where you have to have. You have to have knowledge.
The lowest of the low. I thought puns were below fart jokes.
That's true. I guess puns kind of go across the spectrum of humor. But you have to have knowledge for highbrow humor to work. And so if you don't have that knowledge, it doesn't hit because you don't have that context for the joke to be funny. And so, like someone might make a really clever joke about anthropology, but unless you're in the anthropology community, you may not get it, and so lowbrow humor is great because everybody farts.
Yes.
And
it's like
so
universal. Yeah.
Well, Mel Brooks has both in his movies. And so he caters to, the fart jokes where they're eating beans around the fire. And then he also has the intellectual stuff where every time you hear Frau Bucher in Young Frankenstein, the horses ninny. Because Frau Bucher is glue factory in German.
Oh wow! I never knew that one.
I didn't know that.
Did you hear that?
Well, glue is, made out of horse bones and stuff,
Yeah,
or at least
yeah.
at the time it was.
It used to be, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So every time they hear glue factory, yeah.
All right, that
So
looks like our other host is here, Dale. I'm going to bring him in. Hi, Dale.
Hey, Dale.
All right. So we've got Amber is our guest today, and Dale and Chris, Cribble Badger 11, seems to be going by that handle. And
I like
well,
that
Dale,
one.
you missed a new theme tune at the top of the show, but now we're talking about our favorite movies.
Hey, can I address one of the comments? Tina Whelon says that she can
Tina,
hear.
comment. Yeah, hi there. Let's bring it up here. Yeah.
Yeah, she can hear dialogue in the background. That's from me. My husband is a work-at-home salesman, and we share an office. And so he is in the middle of a meeting right now, and so sorry about the chatter.
Well, there we go. Yeah, it can't be helped. Yeah. Well, Tina cares about it. She is our main listener. She's a very loyal listener, and
Thank you, Tina.
And she enjoys the show.
Now, again, if you don't have,
I don't know what we can do about that.
it's totally fine.
I apologize for being late. I didn't check my email.
Pictures,
Video late.
videos, things like that. It will still look very professional.
I was also late, Dale. I
Right
was having login troubles. And bummer, dude, because I was going to hear the world premiere of that song.
But it's nice to meet you, Amber.
Again? I'll put it on again.
Put on again.
Oh, yes, it's very Bowie.
Yeah. Well, I say Bowie in it. I say I ripped off Bowie in that.
So literally, as the music is being played,
Wait.
the coach can take
Wait.
pictures and stuff and add it right up to the gallery.
Oh, it's going.
So that one right now is one that we are really excited.
I think for me, that's cutting in and out. I think it's going out into the room, and I'm kind of getting. It's going back and forth. But
you can have your own personalized app. And this is the way that colleges are going, by the way, now, is that they're starting to get their own personalized apps.
Right.
Sports.
Now I'm only hearing
all
Amber's.
the items that they got.
All right.
Hey, maybe I want to buy that.
You
I
have to
don't
get
know.
one of those little headphones with a mic on it or something. That would help. Yeah. All right.
I used to run this open with my speakers, but then I get echo. So now what I've done is this. If you can close the distance between you and your mic, it helps a lot. Because what the software does is it's trying to figure out like what is signal and what is noise. And if it decides like the bus in the background is loud enough, it'll amplify the bus during the quiet parts.
Yeah, and
That's my audio
I
tip.
can't upload the thing right into the thing. I have to make it a video. Then if I make it a video, then I can upload it, and then it will sort of play it.
Is that better?
Oh, that's a lot better.
Okay.
You can
Yeah.
control the ads.
Yeah.
No.
I'm like way over here now. Wait.
Just kidding. We were just kidding about saying it was better. People always ask, is it better? And then you've heard it for like a half a second. And then you're like, yeah, it was for that half a second.
Okay. Well, I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Amber,
that might
you
be as
said-
good as it gets.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's all right. All our viewers are on Amber's Twitch stream anyway, so they must be used to it by now.
Yeah, I'm Skyping this out to my Twitch stream or recasting or whatever. This is a cool program. I've only used like Zoom and stuff like that. So
Well, yes, unfortunately, it's not a free. I mean, it was free to try it for a month, but because I was doing it, when I started doing my Kickstarter for my Itsy Bitsy Spider book earlier this year, and I thought, well, it would be fun to do this. And then we just thought we'd keep it going on a weekly basis. But yeah, it's an actual restream. It's very nice to use. But yeah, it's about $20 a month or $19 a month.
This
Well-
podcast is
I don't know. Yeah, it's it's got some good little features.
through the app.
And yeah, I can I can put screens like that if I want. That's
I
the
like
name
the
of our show.
convenience
See you next
feature.
Wednesday, although we might change it.
This
The Market
podcast is driven by guilt, inertia, and the fact we have nothing to do on Wednesday mornings.
well, that sounds fun.
Amber, you said you were talking about your favorite movies.
Yeah.
Does that include Zardoz?
I'm sorry. What'd you say?
You were talking about your favorite movies.
Yeah.
Is Zardoz one of them?
Bless you, Dale.
Is that the one with
like you sneezed.
wait, don't tell me. That's the one with Sean Connery in the red. I've never seen it. What? I've never seen it.
Sorry, Dale, I didn't mean to bring her on the show. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I may have to leave.
I can't say that I don't like it because I've never seen it. So
It'll change your life.
You just don't like the look of it.
No, it's not that. It's the only time I ever like had access to it. It was Riff Tracks, and I was doing laundry at the time, and so I was like only half paying attention to it, and so I couldn't even tell you like the plot or anything. And I remember the red like leather outfit, but
Mankini.
Yeah. There's another one. There's gosh, I'm trying to think. It's I've seen so many crazy movies. Have you ever seen Party Monster?
Yes.
Oh, Parker Posey?
Yeah, with
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised by Macaulay Culkin's performance, you know? Like he was fabulous.
I forgot he was in that.
He's the star.
Oh. Who else is in that?
Seth Green.
Seth Green.
And then
right. Party Monster's about those two New York City club kids that murder someone.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
Parker Posey, is Parker Posey actually in that?
He shows in it.
He shows a little cameo. But yeah, that's Party Monster. It's
I don't think Parker.
Somebody was sharing a top movie franchises thing the other day. It was like a little chart with an animated bar chart showing which is the most movie. Star Wars usually at the top, but at one point Home Alone was like definitely up there in the as a big money making franchise worldwide.
I appreciate the fact that Macaulay Culkin is continuing to act. You know, I mean, him, Hayden Christensen, Jake Lloyd, even Lindsay Lohan got a lot of crap for being child actors when they were child actors, and then growing up and like basically just people shitting on them, and like the fact that Hayden Christensen came back to Anakin Skywalker and Vader, after 15 years. Like, that takes balls. And let's talk about Hayden Christensen for a second. Yeah, I'm going to throw the man some love. Okay,
because my son and his friends, they love the prequels. They were all that age. That's what they saw. They grew up, and they're big fans.
Let's not talk about the prequels. There's a movie called Shattered Glass that he made around the same time as the prequels. That's amazing. It's about.
I saw that about the New York Times. Was he a New York Times journalist, like a young guy, and he?
It was
making up stories.
New Republic, which is the
New Republic,
it's the New Republic
that was
magazine.
Him?
Yeah, and
that was good.
Yeah, that's Hayden Christensen. That's Anakin Skywalker.
What's his name? Sarsgaard's in there too. Mm-hmm. No, that was a good movie.
Yeah, see, I gotta throw the boys some love.
Just in case anyone wants to watch it, it is available on Tubi with commercials.
It's worth it.
The Republic movie, the
Shattered Glass.
Yes.
Shattered Glass. Okay.
Yes, it's on Tubi.com.
Yeah, and it's a well-made movie because it establishes him at the end as an unreliable narrator. This whole time he's been telling you the story of his downfall, and then at the end you find out that he's just teaching business at some community college somewhere. Ooh, trippy.
Ooh, sorry, I meant to.
It's kind of like Wolf of Wall Street, except it's not. He's not telling his story throughout. He just ends up in that position.
I finally saw Wolf of Wall Street. It's
there's Hayden Christensen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so.
Now the kids, they like Wolf of Wall Street.
They brought the 80s back, like 80s style decadence for the whatever that's supposed to be, the aughts. I don't know what the time era is supposed to be.
Well, the movie Wall Street itself tried to make Gecko a villain, and he became like this thing to want to achieve for those guys on Wall Street. They started wearing sharkskin suits after that on Wall Street.
Yeah, he's another great example of America taking it completely the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sort of gives a negative character.
Yeah.
Well, we
over us.
worship
That's
villains.
what we want to be like. Yeah.
This is fantastic.
That goes back all the way back to that painting, American Gothic, which he painted apparently. Winslow Homer.
No, it's not Winslow Homer. It's a different artist.
Who's that? I don't know. I saw it when I was in Chicago. They have it in the Fields Museum there. But yeah, apparently, he painted it to sort of mock those people and say, aren't they stupid?
Grant Wood.
Everybody goes, oh, look, they're the great American.
Well,
Grant Wood is the artist of that painting.
most people don't realize
Amber
that's a father.
Grant Wood.
daughter.
I'll
It's
put it in
not
the
a
chat.
married couple.
What's that?
That's without
In American Gothic,
American.
most people see that painting and think it's a husband and wife. That is supposed to represent a father and daughter.
And then what?
Yeah, well, he's
she looks
probably
a
having
little
it
too young
on
for him.
That's probably the point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah, they're not.
And the
It's an
pitchfork
interesting painting.
represents Satanism.
It blocks it out so nobody can grab any more spots.
Because of the pitchfork?
Yeah.
It opens it back up.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
a lot of symbolism and stuff like that. I find art symbolism gets lost over time. Like Rococo art, for example, had all this symbolism where like a dog meant fidelity, a shoe, only a single shoe meant like you had a foot in the grave, a bubble meant fragility. And so they had all this visual shorthand over time that we've just lost meaning to. And so you look at these paintings and you're like, why is she sitting on a bubble with one shoe and a dog by her feet? Yeah.
It isn't so much we lost it, is that there was a deliberate. Now we don't have art in our lives the same way we used to hundreds of years ago. So in order to make subliminal symbolic messages more effective, we are not taught about them. So we're inundated with subliminal imagery in advertisements, but we're not taught to look for this stuff unless you're an art historian or a graphic designer or someone who works in advertising.
Maybe that's why the spell doesn't work on me.
Yeah. I was part of an advertising Facebook group, and they would show 20th Century Magazine advertisements every day. And the graphic designers and advertisers in this group, they could point out, oh, well, here's the naked lady in the ice cube. Here's the symbolic genitalia in the salad dressing. Here's the phallic.
It's always in the salad
symbol
dressing.
in the Disney poster. And it gets actually deeper because most of those symbols, you look at them and you see sex. But nowadays, they're there as a distraction for even deeper hidden symbols. And a lot of them are about cannibalism.
Here we go again.
Well, I find it very interesting that a few years ago, zombies became very popular. And that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of falls
That's
under
part of
the
it.
motif that
They've been making a run for a while.
Well, they're trying to normalize cannibalism. If you Google, there's a number of there was a plant-based burger out of the Netherlands, and they're advertising. They've made a plant-based burger that tastes like human flesh.
Yeah, I heard that.
I thought human flesh tastes like chicken.
No, it tastes
Yeah,
like
just-
pork. It's
Okay.
they
That
call
makes
it
more
long
sense.
pork
You know,
in
Amber knows these things.
yeah
That makes
in
more
countries
sense,
like China they call it long pork, and the reason why people know what it tastes like is because there was famine after Mao took over in China, and he basically took all these like city people and they went out to the country to be farmers, but they didn't know how to farm, so it was pretty bad. And so out in rural areas they used to have lotteries to feed everybody else.
Is this true?
This is true. Look it up.
I'm gonna need a fact check on this.
Okay,
do
I
that.
will fact check. Yeah. See,
No, I've never
China-
heard that. I mean, I knew things were bad under Mao. I know a lot of people starved, It's like one of those things where, you know, people always bring up Hitler, and I'm like, yeah, but you're leaving out Stalin and Mao and probably a bunch of other people I don't even know about that, you know,
Here.
Yeah.
presided over
Well,
like some
Here,
real bad
here's
stuff.
Here's
Well, that
factoid.
explains it, because things are going to get tough in this country under the coming, you know, Republican utopia, whatever,
Here.
Gilead or whatever we're going to call it. You
Links.
know, and cannibalism will have to be normalized. So you might as well. They're working on it now. They're just trying to get us used. That explains the whole Walking Dead, actually. Really.
So here
You know, we
you
all
go.
know that the dead are just the not people that you meet at the mall, and you know they're all cannibals.
Let's see. Cannibalism.
So
There
just
are
to remind you,
widespread
don't
oral
eat people,
reports.
kids.
There are
There's no
widespread
kid
oral
walking-
reports, though
watching.
little official documentation of human cannibalism being practiced in various forms as a result of the famine. To survive, people had to resort to every possible means, from eating earth and poisons to stealing and killing, even to eating human flesh. Due to the scale of the famine, some have speculated that the resulting cannibalism could be described as an on scale unprecedented in the history of the 20th century.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
where are
from
these
Wikipedia.
official documentation? I want to see the official
gave you links
documentation.
in the private chat. I
No,
just
no,
gave you
it
links.
says right. It go at the top of that. It goes through little official documentation, but I believe it. When
Official
things
documentation.
get tough.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't really trust the official documentation in China anyway.
You know,
so.
it turns out people that are eating people don't go to great lengths to document it, and neither does the government, because it's kind of embarrassing.
Well, that's just it. Is our firsthand accounts that we have of all of these acts happening are from people that left China during that period of time and basically took their story outside. Within China, it never happened. There is no war in Basi saying.
It's like the people that were on the menu and left are like, we're getting eaten on Friday, so we're gonna leave. That's where we're getting the accounts from.
Yeah, but
this whole anti-cannibalism thing's very British. You know, that comes from Britain. That's another example.
Really?
Of,
I
know,
thought the
world culture
Brits
being
kind of
dominated by Britain. In primitive cultures, cannibalism was quite acceptable.
Well, hey, let's back up.
I think before Julius Caesar, even the British people would. I don't know. There's no documentation of cannibalism. We burn people in wicker
Let's
pans.
back up for a second, Mr. Britt. The Brits encouraged cannibalism in India.
Straight up.
Did we? Oh, there we go. All right.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they encouraged cannibalism in India, and I'm currently reading a book called The History's People of the United States by Howard Zinn, and it talks about how cannibalism happened in the colonies under British rule, and that was one of the reasons why, you know, us Yanks rebelled, is because we're like, you ain't taking care of us.
Well, yeah, we might have
Why was
encouraged
it
the natives
happening?
It was happening because
we're not cannibals, but you are. So you have to listen to us.
Under British rule.
Under British rule, yeah.
It didn't happen under British rule, or it didn't happen under American rule.
It didn't happen in Britain, but you know, America hasn't gotten it. But my latest theory, though, is that really Americans are exactly the same as British. All the terrible things that happen in this country are all basically down to your Britishness. You know, Donald Trump. You know, he's basically a British guy. You know,
well,
the whole everything that's wrong in this culture that everyone gets upset about are all the things.
Great Britain is technically the 51st state.
So I have this understanding that like the Puritans took over the British government and they were so uptight that you guys kicked them out.
Yes, yes. So they won the Civil War. So we had the English Civil War, which again is not very well taught in American schools at all.
Yeah, but then the House of Commons took them over after that, right?
Yeah, so but Cromwell represented the Parliament and the people against the king. So before that, the king was the king and he had all the power. And there was a Parliament, but it was sort of subservient to the king. The Civil War, they ended up 4-year war. You know, a lot of people took the side of the king. They were the royalists. Other people took the side of the parliamentarians, the Roundheads. But they were basically the parliamentarians, the Roundheads were led by Cromwell and the Puritans. And they fought this long 4-year civil war. Eventually they won. They chopped off the head of the king and then were in power for, I think, about like 12 years, like Cromwell was in power.
You're so casual about that chopped off the head of the king.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a well-known story in England. We know that happened. Yeah, they chopped off the king. So they won. Okay, they removed the power of the king. But then they were such tyrannical Puritan assholes for the time that they were in power. When Cromwell died, they were like, you know, out of here, we bring back the king. So he brought back Charles II. But now Charles II was not above the Parliament, he was below the Parliament. You know, you've got this weird system that you have now where the king embodies the constitution. They have this sort of ceremonial role. but they don't really have power. But they still had a lot of power at that time because a lot of people supported the king. Then you don't have anything like a Labour Party till the 20th century, where the Labour Party sort of comes off, and then you have a proper left. And then the Whig, what used to be the Whigs become this sort of squashed up little Liberal Party in the middle.
I wish we had a proper left here in America.
Well, the trouble is, the problem is you'd have to split off the left, and then that would leave both, whichever party splits very weak. Actually, it would be better if the right split off, so you had a sort of extreme right that nobody paid any attention to. But
I thought that's what's happening right now.
The long term, it would be better the other way for the left to split off. But anyway, so the point is that American history is very nonsense, because it's all about we defeated the power of the king. You didn't. You defeated the power of an elected government, and the sort of taxation without representation is kind of nonsense, because that was all going to be resolved. So but unfortunately, it took 6 weeks for messages to go back and forth across the Atlantic. So it was a bit hard to sort of stop the thing once it started. But certain people wanted to gain power, and they did, and they've had power. And how well's that worked out? I don't know. Worked out pretty well as you have slavery and other people to exploit. But when you don't have that,
you got it right.
It's a lot more.
Well, and again, I've been reading this book, this People's History of the United States, and he goes over a lot of that. He goes over how,
Yes, it does, yes.
oh yeah, there's, there was rich white landowners, and they basically were pitting the poor non-land owning whites and pitting them against the enslaved blacks and natives. And basically saying like, oh yeah, you need to be the buffer between this wild out here where the natives lived and our beautiful little colonies and stuff, which created animosity. So when they're like, yeah, we're gonna be our own country and rebel against Britain and we'll all be equal, right? They were spouting that nonsense back then. And it's really sad. I'm about halfway through the book right now. And, blacks, women, natives, Chinese, like so many demographics that are part of America's history were like stomped on throughout America's history as they're like breaking it. Like the Chinese built the railroad, and like what they get for it.
They invented jeans too.
Yeah. But what'd they get for it?
Thank
they
you,
got
Chinese.
The anti-Chinese, the Anti-Chinese Immigration Act, and they were limited to Chinatowns, and there's all the stigma about like opium dens and stuff, but they weren't even allowed to work outside of like laundromats. It's
this one right here where
America.
I have that
it's just the power of stories. That those stories are all very powerful. The foreign man's coming to take your job, whatever it might be,
myth.
Yeah. So we need to, as artists, it's our job to come up with better stories.
Stories are super powerful. I've got that book, Amber, and I've been meaning to read it for years. And I think it's sitting on my shelf over there. But I got onto that like years ago, seeing him on Bill Maher, and I thought this is really interesting. It's like an alternative. It's really like a people's history of the U.S. as opposed to a ruler's history of the U.S., which is what you're taught in school. You're mute.
Well, that's
if you're taught anything.
I'm trying to be polite with the sharing the office thing. It's basically talking about the different demographics of people and how they came together and how they worked with and against each other. Right now where I am in the book is just prior to the Civil War. And so it's talking about, obviously slavery and the 38th parallel, but it's also talking about things like the fact that prior to the Civil War, the South was already dismantling the connections in railroads between the North and the South. And they were forced. They were forcing the North to come down with basically a cart, horse cart, to pick up linens and stuff, knowing that those linens were going to be turned into uniforms against them. So there's like, that's because the people that were selling linens were the individual plantation owners that were making money off of the North. Right. But all of the aristocracy that was in the South cut those lines prior to the war, so you had people basically going over, to enemy lines before they were even enemy lines.
Good idea.
Yeah. Afterwards, there is the carpetbaggers too. And that's interesting. I haven't even gotten to them yet.
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
people
Amber,
think
yes, you've gone very political over the last few years. I mean, I've been following your posts a lot on Facebook, and yeah, you have a lot of right posts.
now I want to
Yeah,
go to Facebook.
are you getting more political? Are you going to get politically active? Are you going to run for office one of these days?
So much work.
No, you
Yeah,
don't
well,
want to do that.
No,
I know. Well, you're just taking over being a mom, so that's a new job for you.
Yeah.
Relatively new.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
obvious, yeah.
am. I have a 1-year-old. She's in the next room watching cartoons, and she's being a very good girl by watching
What
cartoons.
tunes? What cartoons?
Right now she's watching Shaun the Sheep.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yeah. So
I don't know that one.
Oh, Aardman.
Oh,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
same guys who
yeah,
did
like
Wallace and Gromit.
but with sheep. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Wallace and Gromit. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's with sheep, and so there's a dog. His name is Bitzer. There's Sean. He's obviously a sheep. There's a farmer. Pigs. It's cute. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone can enjoy Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they have almost every single episode on YouTube right now, but in I think whatever language they speak in Kazakhstan,
Borat?
and then in Japanese and stuff. But the only part that's changed is the opening song. The rest of it, they haven't dubbed over anything because they're silent cartoons. They don't need to dub over.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah. Yes, right. The farmer might say a word or two.
How old is Shaun the Sheep now? Is that over 10 years old?
Let's see.
Probably. He's been around a while. Yeah. It was a bit like Sam was a bit old for Shaun the Sheep, but when it was first around, but we would watch them. I mean, yeah, we would watch Wallace. When he was little, we'd watch Wallace and Gromit a lot.
Let's
No,
see.
I
I'm
just think
asking.
it's fun that usually when kids watch cartoons, they're decades old.
Yeah.
Uh, 2007.
But they're very timeless.
Okay.
2007. Yeah. There we
So,
go.
so not 20 years yet, but
No.
15.
Yeah, so 2007. No, my little girl's been watching the Disney Afternoon, which is like Tailspin and DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and Rescue Rangers and Gummy Bears and all of that stuff, that I grew up with. And then she's been watching Teen Titans Go because that show's freaking hilarious. And
But that's still going. Yeah, Sam really liked that a lot. Yeah, that was a popular one. Yeah, that's been around a while.
It's one of those, like, at the time that Teen Titans Go came out, there was another Teen Titans show that they basically canceled. They rebooted the show and they made Teen Titans Go. And the fan base got toxic about it because Teen Titans Go was a completely different genre than the first one, which was, all serious, the Bruce Timm style, kind of thing. And then Teen Titans Go was this kind of bouncy comedy show.
More cute, like Powder Puff Girls or something.
Yeah. So I never watched it at the time that it came out because I was doing other things. I was in college and stuff at the time, and then the show comes out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Like, why did I never watch the show when it was on? Like, I should have supported this. And they they have homages to other shows and little like appreciations and stuff like that. Yeah, it's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, that's one of the best bits of being a parent is you get to watch all the cartoons again. Yeah, it was like I used to love cartoons, but Tina's not a big cartoon watcher. I didn't marry someone who's crazy about cartoons. It's probably a good thing.
I made the mistake though of watching Terminator 2 with my daughter. I was sick, right? And Terminator 2 is one of those movies I go to when I'm sick, to watch and feel better. I know that, exactly what's going to happen. I can appreciate the special effects for, how awesome they are. And, the helicopter going under the bridge and, just all these amazing stunts in it and stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I'm sick. I'm just going to sit here and do it. And, my daughter was curled up and, with her bottle and watching it and stuff. And then she was terrified of mannequins for 6 months.
Well, what happens with mannequins? I mean, mannequins aren't featured in that movie, right? It's just kind of her thing about like a mechanical non-human, like this figure that's non-human.
T2, right? So you have you have the T1000 who gets a little silvery and, and very mannequin-like when he's walking out of the fire and stuff. And
you taught your daughter about the uncanny valley.
I did teach her that.
The problem with children is they watch cartoons that are about 15, 20, 30 years old, and they watch old movies on television with their parents. So when they're very young, their moral structure is based on the morals of those cartoons and old movies. So they may be living in 2022, but they're learning about what was acceptable in 2000 or the 1990s. My whole moral
sweetie,
structure...
we've been watching Looney Tunes. We're going back to
okay, you're going
40s. My daughter's screwed.
Yeah, your daughter. Your daughter's learning that justice is delivered by anvils.
Yes.
Also, violence is hilarious.
Let's talk here for a second, okay? Let's be philosophical about this. Is justice not handed out by anvils?
Oh yeah, death is God's anvil.
Yeah, anvil's going to fall on your head sooner or later.
Yeah. That's because we live in a comic strip.
Oh well,
yes. And you bounce back. The secret to life is being resilient and being able to bounce back when you've been hit on the head with an anvil.
So, I'll tell you about a problem I had with an anvil recently. So, my father died last year, and I was in this emotional state coming back from his death and going back home and stuff. And it was on the airplane, the airline and stuff. You still had to wear masks at the time. And so we're wearing masks. Annabelle's not, she's only a year old. Most everybody on the plane's wearing masks. There's one guy not wearing one. And the flight attendants keep going up to him, asking him to wear one. He's being belligerent to them. He's telling them to do something the anatomically impossible, involving them and the horses they rode it on. He's being belligerent, getting drunk the whole time. And so this is just making me seethe. I'm in grieving and all this stuff. So when we're getting off, everybody's piling out in front of us, and we're in the very back of the plane, and they basically told him to sit tight. And so we had to pass in front of him. And I was in the state where I was just going to put his mask on for him. And we ended up getting into an altercation, which is a nice way of saying a fight. And have the baby right here when we get into a fight. And so, I back off and stuff. And then Ian, my husband, defended me and got into a fight with him and stuff. And, after the investigation and the flight marshals and the police and everything like that, they basically said, no, you can't touch other passengers. We're not going to ban you from the air or from the airline, but no. And then he got canned, he got banned, and he had to go to jail. But yeah, so that was me trying to be an anvil. Don't be the anvil.
Okay, yes, good story, Amber. Crikey, that all sounds very exciting.
So wait, I shouldn't be the anvil?
Don't be the anvil, because I tried to be the anvil, and the anvil almost got arrested.
No,
you got to get the air marshals to do that.
You need to be Snoopy.
I got beat up.
Yeah, Ian got beat up.
Wow. Well done standing up for the missus.
I just want to say something that is related, but it won't seem like it at first. When I used to kickbox, some of the guys at the gym were ranked in the world. And I went to one of these exhibition fights, which is like an amateur fight for fun. And I went with a friend and I said, you see that guy over there? He's ranked 4th in the world for his weight class. And my friend Jens goes, that's why I don't get in fights with people, because that dude just looks like some humble guy who's skinny and I could whip his ass.
I was on some random Reddit thread that was talking about, how a guy threw a wild punch in a fight, in a bar fight, and he ended up killing the guy. And
yeah, that happens too.
And he didn't, he obviously didn't mean to and stuff. They were both drunk, but he ended up having to do something like 17 years in jail.
It's a crapshoot. It's not a we get in a ring, there's rules and everybody knows what's going on. There's a lot of chaos in fights, so yeah.
I like MMA. Yeah. I like boxing. I watch them.
There's less chaos in those fights.
Chaos, though. Huh? Humans crave a bit of chaos. Humans crave a bit of chaos.
They do, but I'd rather watch somebody else have it.
Well, I have a lot of respect for anybody who's willing to step into a boxing ring or an octagon and say, I'm willing to pit my skills against this other person. And I have ultimate respect for people who do that. You know, even the loser, like the fact that they're willing to step in there, that's braver than me. But
Chuck wants to step in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got talking while we're on the subject of mixed martial arts and all that. There's a place down the street, our Mission Street here, Dragon House Mixed Martial Arts. My art is going to be displayed in their window throughout through the next few months. I signed up for the local Excelsior Art Initiative, sponsored by San Francisco Arts Pan. I'm getting paid a stipend of about $1,000. And I'm getting it made in a massive decal, like the art I did, like the Mission Street art, and this will be displaying in the windows. That's nice. So I'm pro martial arts and mixed martial arts right now.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Segue.
Yeah, I've been heading back to the
easy.
gym. I've been heading back to the gym after having the baby. I've lost about 12 pounds, but I got about 40 more to go.
I'm pro martial arts, but I know people studying martial arts, but the human body is very delicate, and you have to accept the risk that even in just training, you can receive permanent damage.
Oh, there's a video. Should I find it? Should I show it to you guys? There's a video I have where basically it shows the before and after of an MMA fighter, South American MMA fighter. And so his before is it's his pre-fight weigh-in where he's like, yeah, and his after is him having trouble walking and needing help from his family.
Yeah, any type of combat sport, any type of combat sport like that, where you're receiving repeated concussions.
Yeah, punch drunk.
Yeah, you get punch drunk. So
yeah.
I have a pal of mine who's studying, and she's working her way up to black belt. But this is more for fitness and self-discipline, and to be able to do something if something comes up. But you take a risk when you get into any professional sport with contact, hockey, soccer, football. I have a nephew who got his back broken in high school football. So it's much safer to be a cartoonist. I mean, you cut yourself with X-Acto knives, but now that we've moved to digital, we're less likely to do that.
You can have your characters fight.
I'm going to get some coffee. I'll be right back.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yes. But if you watch the TV show Kung Fu, you'll remember. You attract these things. Like once you become a powerful martial artist, even if you're going around trying to be peaceful, somehow you're always going to find yourself in the middle of like the action, because who else can stand up but you?
Well, that's because we live in a comic strip. Popeye is such a good fighter because it's necessary for the story.
Yes, it makes sense. Ooh,
so if you train to be a martial artist, you will attract these fights because that's part of your storyline.
Yes, I think so. There's definitely something about that aspect to it.
Yeah.
Well, I think
you said something interesting about Snoopy. Be like Snoopy in these situations. Sorry, I didn't. That was left hanging out there for me. How do we be like Snoopy?
Well, the trick is if you're on an airplane with somebody who's a non-masker and they're drunk and they're just being obnoxious, there's not really much that you can do in those few seconds as you're passing by them on the plane. You could accidentally spill something on them, like a diaper, and apologize. Or you can look to see if he has a physical characteristic, like, wish him luck on his bald spot, because that will hurt him much longer than, punching him in the face.
I learned my lesson. I did.
Probably punch you in the face.
And again, that's why I preambled that story with the fact that my father had just died like 3 days before.
Yeah.
I was.
Yes. Yeah, you were in an emotional state.
I'm usually more logical than that. and patient and everything like that. But I just lost my temper on the plane, you know, because like my baby couldn't wear a mask and COVID's. So yeah. Let's talk art.
Yes. Tell me about your.
All right, so Amber, have you got some art to show us?
Tell me about your digital tablet, because you decided not to get a Wacom. Your husband bought you a different.
I have a Whelon.
How do you like it?
It's fantastic. So I actually, this is the second Whelon I had. The last version of this tablet that I had was awful. It plugged in with an RCA cable. It didn't use HDMI, and it was finicky. I had problems with the pen because the pen had a battery in it that you had to charge by plugging it in and stuff, and it just wasn't a very good model, and so I wasn't very pleased with it. And I was looking back at Cintiqs, which are super expensive, and then what they did is they basically, Whelon listened to their audience. And they went, oh, these are the things you want us to change? Okay. And so the next version of this tablet that came out, I have the Canvas with an M and a K. The Canvas tablet has a pen that's very similar to a Cintiq pen. And so it doesn't have any battery anymore. And, you know, you can program these buttons. It's pressure sensitive. And, you know, I have a bunch of tips for it. I've only had to replace the tip once so far, but I use it all the time. It has a screen that's easy to adjust. There's a handle in the back that you just pull, and then you pull it to the angle that you want. And then it works great as a monitor when I'm not using it as a tablet.
Do you like the texture of the nib on the screen? Because I know Chuck added an overlay to his Cintiq.
I don't have the overlay, but the new version of the Canvas has a slightly textured screen to it, so it's more paper-like. And so I'm pleased with the way that it feels right now. You can also choose to offset the pen if you want to actually see where the pen is going, rather than trying to press down right where the pen's at.
Does the stylus have a rechargeable battery or no battery at all?
No battery at all. It's just done by pressure on the screen, and, you know, however modern magic works.
Okay. It's electromagnetic then.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's
no
my
worries.
bailiwick. And
No
you're
worries.
using Photoshop?
Actually, I made the switch over to Clip Studio Paint. I'm on Clip Studio Paint, and I use the Affinity suite. And so let's see, Clip Studio Paint, Affinity suite. I have Blender, DaVinci Resolve, and so that pretty much replaces my Premiere. And then I still have Word, Microsoft Word.
Are you a Mac or Windows kid?
More Windows, but I'm, you know, familiar with Mac. My college was all Mac stuff, but for me, it's not that Mac's bad or good or anything like that. It's just different, and it's for different people. And so there are people out there that just want it to work. They just want, I plug this into this, and they talk to each other, and, you know, here's my tablet, and here's my program, and it works. And Mac's great for those people, but I like having a little bit more control and nuance in my computer, and being able to control things like how much memory is allocated, or you know, where stuff is stored, and you don't have as much freedom with that with Macintosh as you do with PC. Now, Linux stuff is for people who want like total control, or are making server spaces or something really complicated, or a proprietary system. And that's beyond me. I'm not a Linux person, but I respect people who are Linux people. Me, I'm in the middle. I'm PC. I like to you know, dabble and kind of know technical stuff, but I still have problems where sometimes my portable hard drives aren't talking to my computer because
an alarm just went off. I'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
I think I'm switching to Linux. I've been thinking about it for years now, and I think I'm finally gonna do it. There's all these flavors of Linux. I think that's what happened with Linux in the last couple years that I didn't realize is, like, when I loaded it as a trial, it's basically like any other OS. It's like as easy to use to me as Windows or Apple or the mobile OSs,
Mhm.
it's not like it used to be. And there's so many flavors of it now. And it's open source. And I think most of the distros are free. So you just pick the distribution you like or the distribution that works for you. But
Mhm.
I'm pretty excited about that because I'm so done. I'm on Windows 7 right now.
Amber,
I made the update to Windows 11. Everybody's complaining about it. I've had no problems.
Amber, are you
Yeah, I
using
don't-
Blender to create perspective reference for your cartooning?
See, Clip Studio Paint has a 3D option.
I know.
And so you can make
Dale
models.
knows all about Clip Studio Paint.
The
Right,
reason why-
you're even, so you're winning on Clip Studio Paint, but you lost on Zardoz. So I'm not sure what the tiebreaker is going to be, but we'll see.
I lost on what?
You lost on Zardoz.
Zardoz. Yes, the movie.
You're winning on Clip Studio Paint. These are Dale's pet subjects. Yeah.
So yes,
cannibalism. You're neutral, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure what his point about cannibalism is.
I have a wide range of information in my brain about odd subjects, and so I seriously, I took pictures of my library the other day, and it was like 7 photos to capture my entire library, standing back and like, here's this shelf, here's this shelf, here's this shelf. So I got 7 bookshelves that are like full in my house, full of books from, philosophy, history, art history. I got On Bullshit, which is an essay on bullshit by a guy that worked at Harvard, and I got
Penn and Teller.
It's an important business skill. I went to business school with a guy who was excellent at bullshit. He could stand up in front of a room full of, like quite, industry leaders, really, and he would be able to just talk about a subject he knew nothing about, like he knew all about it.
So
quite confident.
So when I was in college, I had the worst day of my life, which happened to be Halloween. And the reason why was because on the 30th, the night before, I was working on my midterms, which were due on Halloween the day after, with a couple friends in my dorm. And one of my friends started losing consciousness, and we had to rush her to the emergency room. And so I was in the emergency room all night. And then, it's 8:00 in the morning. My first class is at 1 p.m. And I'm like, okay, let me go to the service bureau. I'll print out all of my assignments, and then I'll catch a few hours of sleep. And then, I'll go to class, right? Well, when I go to the service bureau and I open up my computer, it had crashed. It had died. It took everything. And so rather than sleeping, I'm running around to, the tech department. I'm running over here. I'm getting a spare computer. I'm trying to see if my stuff's saved on the servers. I'm doing all this rather than sleeping. So I go to class. And by the way, I am dressed in a Halloween costume throughout all of this. And I blew up at everybody. I blew up at just everybody. It was awful that day. And the next day, tail between my legs, I'm going and I'm apologizing to people and stuff like that. But like, tech, it can betray you.
Yeah, I had that experience fairly early on. I think with computer, I had my computer and all of a sudden it died, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was freaking out and running around. And then I got it back 2 weeks later. But after 2 weeks, I was sort of quite happy without it again, and I was like, "Oh, so I've vowed in future to make sure I always back my stuff up, but also, to." I don't know, not be too dependent on it, but it's difficult. I mean, now we're even more dependent on them than ever. It's very complicated, and it's hard to, it's hard not to lose your temper sometimes. I try to be a good person, but once in a while things just get to you and you lose your temper.
I was a back genius. I have no sympathy whatsoever.
At the time, I had an undiagnosed bipolar disorder. And so I did not know what the hell was going on. I just, kind of had a psychotic break at the time. And then, later on, the diagnosis came, medications came. And after time, we found a cocktail of medication that works for me, where it's like, now I'm myself again. I feel like myself again and stuff. But it took years to get there. And that was a very dark day for me. That was a bad day, but it was an Apple computer that died. It was Mac computer. And so part of me is a little against all Macs because it killed it. It killed my it.
Yeah, mine
It
was
was the
too.
midterms. It was the midterms, but we were talking about bullshit. So this is what brought up the subject. So I don't have my midterm. I don't have my business plan for my business plan class. So I bullshitted it. When we had to present for our midterms, I
So you
literally
used it in business. Great.
I literally leaned my butt against the table, explained the fact that I had lost everything in a computer crash. And this is what I remember from my business plan. And I literally went through my business plan from memory, and I ended up getting a B in the course.
Yeah, they love a good bullshitter in business. I'm telling you, that's the key to success in business. It's like, oh, that person's a good bullshitter.
Yeah.
We want to do business with them.
Yeah, my
talking
buddy.
about go on.
Well, I was gonna say my buddy Joe, who's a musician.
Who we had on the show, Joe Medina.
Did we have him on?
Yeah,
we should have him on.
About him.
Oh, we should have him back at some. We should have him back at some point. He's a super interesting guy. But anyway, he started off in like Central Valley, came to San Francisco, then went to LA and doing music. And he said after living in LA for about 6 months, the skill he was developing is everybody is a bullshitter down there. And so his skill set. Yeah, go ahead.
There's 5 conversations you'll have in LA. Who are you? What do you do? We should work together. Here's my idea. Check out my shit.
Yeah. So he is down there because everyone's got a script. Everyone's pitching something. Everyone's trying to get into the industry and they're just working some other job. And he goes, after about 6 months, I got really good at figuring out like who's bullshitting me and who's not bullshitting me. And that's the skill set he developed in 6 months. He could tell who was legit and who was just like, there's nothing behind it. They were never going to finish that film. They were never going to.
I'm a better poker player than Ian is because I used to do stand-up comedy in LA. And so you learn a lot of bullshitters in stand-up comedy. There's a great guy. I want to throw him some love too. His name's Ryan Talmo. He is known as Valley Jesus. And so he's known as that in the LA area and throughout the comedy scene there because he sets up shows everywhere. And he doesn't set up bringer shows. A bringer show is when you like buy out a venue, like say the Comedy Store or something like that, or the Improv. And then you gather, say 10 different comedians, you give them each 10 tickets to sell. And then they each bring 10 people. So you have an audience of 100 for your 10 comics at the Comedy Store. And you say, yay, I'm performing at the Comedy Store, but you really just bought the venue. It's not like they asked you to come there. And so bringer shows are kind of really bad in the comedy world because it takes advantage of a lot of really optimistic and naive people. And so Ryan doesn't do that. What he does is he sets up basically set lists with people at places like, say, the Universal Bar and Grill, where the Universal Bar and Grill wants people to sit and drink there. So might as well have a comedy show. So he actually will like, okay, I got 5 spots open, and then he'll find comics that have a 5-minute set, a 10-minute set. He'll fill it out like a real show. And so all of these bars have started paying him to set up these shows. So he's actually made a living from setting up these comedy shows. So Ryan's not a bullshitter, but man, can he spot a bullshitter. And so like Ryan is one of the most respected guys out there in the comedy scene because again, he's, you know, if he hears somebody pitching a bringer show or something, he'll go over and he's like, shoot, get away from this little naive comic. Look, man, if you want real stage time, here's open mics that you can attend. Right. And when you're ready with a set list, then come see me and I'll give you 5 minutes. Right. But like he knows every comedy show in the LA basin. And so he'll tell you where to cut your teeth. He'll tell you the laundromat shows. Yeah.
Is that when you play in an actual laundromat?
Yes.
Yes, the laundromat shows is basically
That's-
kind of where you start in LA when you're doing
Yeah.
comedy.
San
You don't
Francisco
want to do
is
anything
called
below a
the
laundromat
brainwash.
show. You
Yeah,
don't
Yeah.
start below a laundromat show.
They're-
Don't work your way
They're
up
like
to the
Sunday
laundromat.
afternoon in the laundromat, and literally like the laundromat, like that's your corner. And you set up your own mic with a little, amp, and you're like, hi, this is my comedy show. And people
You're
just
triggering my wokeness.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I remember this from years ago, wasn't it? Yes, the laundromat comedy. Yes, that's been around for a while. Yeah, but that's I remember that made some news back in the day. Yeah, oh my god.
Yeah, sadly, the brainwash closed. But
yeah.
Amber,
Yes.
I played
how
there.
did you get into stand-up comedy? How much material? How long was your act? And then
so
what level were you?
My
How far did you
stand-up
get?
comedy career, it's interesting. So the first time I ever did stand-up comedy, I was like 19 years old, and I was that naive kid going and doing the bringer shows at the Comedy Store. And so, I made a couple friends in the area, but realized because I lived in Riverside County, which was 3 hours away, one way, drive, I couldn't, it was unsustainable for me to continue doing that and commuting to LA. And so, I made my friends and, made my peace and stuff. Life happens. I go off, I make comics. I moved to Canada for a while. I get my degree. And then when I moved back to California, some of my friends from the comedy scene had moved up in the comedy scene.
What was the Canada thing? Were you on the run for the law, evading the draft? What was going on?
Oh, what?
No,
when
it was
I moved
like
to
it was
Canada?
Bush
No,
got
I moved.
elected.
No, I moved there for love. There was my website, Panel to Panel. When when I left Modern Tales, I started up my own website, and I was hosting Gun Street Girl, which used to be on Graphic Smash as well. And Ryan Howe, the artist of Gun Street Girl, and I fell in love online. And then I moved to Canada to be with him, and it didn't work out. And so, moved back to the States, went back to school.
Well, you're going to take a chance, yes.
Yeah.
Well done for taking the chance.
Yeah, but no, I wasn't evading a draft or anything. I did it because my heart was, I love him. And yeah.
There are these threats about moving to Canada depending on who gets elected. This was going on like 20 years ago. I had friends that were like, if this person gets elected, I'm just going to Canada. And they never did.
So,
well, Canada won't have you, first of all.
So going back to what happened with comedy. So this is probably about 2010 or so that I moved back to California. And so some of my friends had moved up in the comedy world where they were to the point, like Ryan, where they were setting up their own shows. And then another friend of mine that I actually went to high school with by the name of Nathan Woodward, he was at that naive stage where he's like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. And he was making the 3-hour commute, working at an Arco in Southern California. And he was doing the bringer shows at the Comedy Store. And so one of the bringer shows that he did was with this comedian by the name of David Berger that set up the show. And David makes his living off of overcharging for those tickets, that rather than giving them to the performers of the show, like what the venue encourages you to do for them to sell the tickets, he sells the tickets to the other performers to sell at an upcharge. And so he's a little shady, this David Berger. And so I kind of, I had that instinct previously of like, this guy's taking advantage of you. I smell bullshit. And so, yeah. And so Nathan was like, oh yeah, I could really use, we could really use somebody else. We only have like 8 people for our show. And so I'm like, fine, I'll do a bringer show just so I can meet this guy and kind of feel him out and stuff like that. And that bringer show was very interesting because I met other comedians I'm still friends with, like Jose Barrientos, Peter Marshall, all these like little guys that are starting to like move up in the industry. Jose actually, he does college shows at this point. And then he has like a YouTube channel that has something like 2 million subscribers or something. And then Peter Marshall is moving up in the comedy circuit through Festival. so he's doing comedy festivals, getting awards at this festival, that festival, and he's making his connections that way. But I met them both at this Bringer show, and they're all in the category of the naive. Oh boy, this is me performing at the comedy show, and this is me going like, no, okay, this Ryan Talmo guy, you need to talk to him, and so so I kind of did that a little sneakily to just kind of break up the Bringer show, because David had been doing this for several months. And like I said, he'd been charging for the tickets. I'm like, Nathan, no, that's not good. And so so I would show up, and I kind of introduced these few comedians to Ryan, and then we started doing his shows. And I dusted off all those jokes from 2001 when I originally did comedy, realized they didn't work, and then reworked jokes. And so Lovitz was still opened at the time, around 2003, when I was still doing comedy. And I did a set at Lovitz, and I got like a couple giggles. And then, I went to the bar, and I was like, oh man, this didn't work out. And John Lovitz was there because, he was checking his.
Oh, I love him. I love him so much. He's one of my favorite.
The dude sat down and gave me like comedy 101, and he sat down, and I, because I was asking the bartender, what did I do wrong? Like, I thought the jokes were funny. And he basically said that I wasn't ugly enough to get away with the jokes that I was telling that were crass, and I wasn't pretty enough to get away with them. So what I needed to do was either become a writer and put my jokes in other people's mouths, or work on my look. And so I'm a tomboy. I don't like makeup. So I kind of.
Didn't you used to be? Weren't you a Disney princess for a short time?
You could have been like.
Yeah, I was. I was a Disney princess at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear the Disney voice?
Sure. Yes.
I'm oh so pleased to see you today. All of you children coming here to spend time with me. Yeah.
Can you do Dora?
I did that at Disneyland.
I did Prince Harry with that. Yeah, that's good.
I like the Doras I've seen online. And your
daughter comes in when you do that.
Toddlers.
Hello.
Wow. It's like magnetic for kids, that voice.
I'm glad she came in at this point and not when we were talking about cannibalism.
Yeah. Well, she's one. She needs to learn about it sometime.
Now, how long was your act? How much material did you have?
So, okay. So going back to it. So that was kind of quote unquote my height, was sitting there at that Lovitz thing, and him saying that wasn't pretty enough and stuff like that. And he wasn't saying it as a joke. He was honestly like, like, you got to consider what kind of look you are. And we talked about other female comedians and stuff. Like, he brought up Sarah Silverman, and how, she has a very clean look. And yet she tells all these raunchy jokes, and that's kind of what she's known for. But she, she's not just frumpy sitting on stage, which is what I was doing and stuff like that. And he's like, I bet you could sell, this joke that you told, blah, 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 to somebody, and they would get a bigger laugh than you. And so one of the other guys that I was sitting at the bar with, that was another comedian waiting for his time, his name was Stretch. And he's like, yeah, I'll buy your joke. And so he gave me $20. And, and I'm like, okay, here you go. And I write down the whole thing and stuff. And so he goes up on stage. I was literally on stage 5 minutes before, told the exact same joke, almost word for word, 5 minutes before, and he got a booming laugh.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's like you could have,
no one was paying attention to me when I was on stage, but he said the exact same thing I did, and he got a booming laugh. And that told me, okay, I'm a comedy writer. I'm not a comedian. Okay, that's good to know. Harold Ramis had the very similar revelation, but I think he was on acid at the time.
Yeah,
it's funny you talk. Go ahead, Dale.
My act at its length, I had a half hour.
Okay, that's a lot.
And so, I had bad jokes about like drugs and awful things. Like, I had one joke about how there's the 4 F's, right? Which is fighting, fleeing, feeding and fucking, right? Those are the 4 Fs.
I only thought there were 2.
Well, I think the reason why Batman is feared in Gotham is because in that moment of high adrenaline, he mixes up his Fs. And so like people are like, the Bat got him. You know, like there's probably support groups in Arkham. You know, it's like why is Tommy no longer with the Joker's game? The Bat got him. You know, like how did the Bat get him? Did he take a bite out of him? Did he give him love?
Oh, we're coming back to cannibalism again.
Could go a lot of ways. Amber, I was gonna say that you know, there's a exact music parallel in these Taker shows. Is that what they're called? Yeah, there's this exact music parallel. Like all the stuff you're describing happens in the music industry, like verbatim. It's called something different. It's called Battle of the Bands. They give you tickets, you sell them. And after you do about 2 of these shows, you're like, wait a second, we're doing all the work selling the tickets, and then we have to play the show too,
and then
we don't.
You got to man your booth to sell your you know, CDs and your shirts and stuff, and you got to have merch there if you want to sell anything. Yeah.
So after a while, we were like, so we do all the work, and the bar just rakes in most of the money. Yeah. So we did a couple of those shows. We were excited about them too. You know, like the first 2 shows until we realized the economics of it. Then we're like,
Yeah, they're fine to do if you are independently wealthy, you know, and you're just having fun being a musician,
as most musicians are.
Oh yeah, just having fun. I play guitar. When my father passed away, I inherited his guitars, so I have a Martin and a Moss right now, and the Moss right's going to go see a luthier in probably about 3 months or so, because its neck got bent over the last 60 years.
the neck has come up, so the action is super high.
The action is a little high right now, but oh man, I love the neck on it. The Moss right's a surf guitar, so it has a speed neck before speed necks were a thing. And
I don't know what that is.
A speed neck is a thin neck designed for speed metal. Think like an Ibanez.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and so again, the Martin too has like the ownership certificate that my dad got with it because he bought from Martin, and
that could be worth. Yeah, that could be worth so much money.
Yeah, but it just sings. It's a beautiful guitar.
The Martin does.
Oh, them
both of them.
Yeah.
Wait, so one's an electric and one's an electric.
Oh yeah, you want to see him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I would, but I want to bore everybody else to tears. But yeah.
No, yeah, we got you, Chris. Yeah, you're here for the music aspect of the show.
Bring the guitar
let me bring him out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I mean, I super like guitars, although I'm kind of weird in the sense that I really appreciate well-made guitars. I'm not so much into the name around them and having them as museum pieces. And I basically rotate out guitars. Like I've never owned more than I think 6 guitars or 7 guitars. I'll sell one and then I'll bring in another one that's better. I'm always like upgrading. And right now I think I've got 3 acoustics and 1 electric right now. So I'm low on guitars, guys. Don't cry.
Buy one. Go buy a guitar. Today you should buy
a guitar.
We give you permission to buy a guitar today.
I've been planning on it for a long time. I do this thing where I go to the site Warmeth that lets you build your own guitar, and I spec it out. Yeah. I mean, you're essentially assembling their parts, but they're super high quality parts, and also the prices is what you'd expect. Wow.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful.
So wait, that's the surf guitar, yeah?
Yeah, this is the Moss right.
Yeah, the Moss right.
Here,
I should know more about guitars than I do.
There's a way to turn off my blur, right?
Yeah. Look for one of those gears. Yeah. Look at the gear thing at the bottom of our video. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Video. Audio. Virtual background. There we go. No background. Okay. There. Now you can see it.
There we go.
I can blur stuff.
Oh, I didn't know it was a semi semi hollow.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a semi hollow. It has a buzz in one of the strings. Yeah,
I mean, that's not so bad. A lot of people would just live with that because it's electric.
Yeah,
I mean, it depends on what you're doing with it, but
yeah. So that's the Mossrite, and the story behind this guitar is it used to belong to my Uncle Melvin before it belonged to my dad. My Uncle Melvin was a drug dealer before he died in the 70s, and he got it as payment from one of the musicians in the Turtles for some drug deal.
Have you looked any of these guitars up and seen what the deal is
You
with
need
them?
to go on Antiques Roadshow with that story.
Well,
yeah,
I have no proof that it was owned by the Turtles. There's a picture.
Yeah, you need the documentation. That's the problem.
Yeah,
you can trust that drug dealer, Dale.
That could be relatively easily authenticated though, because you could probably like find a picture with them.
Oh, if there's a serial
like
number.
I said, there's a picture, and there are serial numbers. But
oh yeah,
this one.
But it's not. He wouldn't have registered it. You know, I don't think he would have. You have to register those things.
Yeah, he was a druggie, so
yeah. Just take him at his word. He was a druggie.
Well, it depends on the drug. The drug, if it was cocaine, you know, he could have been pretty anal and registered it.
Let me grab the Martin. I'll be right back.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I gotta do more registration."
That's why a lot of stockbrokers did cocaine. It was the paperwork.
It helps them get through the paperwork.
Yeah,
they're like,
this show is completely gone off the rails.
Do you remember that commercial in the 80s against drugs? And it was like, I do cocaine so I can work more hours, so I can make more money, so I can do cocaine so I can work more hours. And the guy's like, you know, going in a circle in a room, like desperately circling in this little room.
Yeah, that was pretty much the synopsis of most of my economics lectures.
You should do cocaine.
That's the entire basis of capitalism.
Yeah, the entire basis of capitalism is work harder to make more, to spend on stuff that requires you to work harder to spend more.
So, Amber, what year are these guitars? It's so hard to tell.
The Mossrite, I want to say, is 1967.
Wow.
And this one's 2005. So this one's a relatively newer one.
It's a baby.
Yeah. But it has a nice sound. It's out of tune though. It's out of tune,
I like Martins. I was looking at Martins and I ended up getting a Taylor because of their necks, which is about 20 years old now. I still think they make like the best necks of the big acoustic brands. I have a Seagull that I love. Yeah, their necks are just really like, I just think they got into this whole engineering thing. To me, the neck is where it's at with guitars. That's the spot.
Have you ever
before you
picked
get
up
comfortable, I want to see the cat.
The what?
The cat.
Which cat?
Oh, you
pick up the talking cat.
Oh. It's not a cat.
Talking cat, yay!
No, I swear I saw a cat.
Oh yeah, I got 3 cats. You're gonna see them. I think he went outside though.
I like this talking cat.
Yes. Ian, would you grab her?
Now, Amber, you.
Oh no, we love having her on the show.
You shared with us that you're. Oh, hello. That you're a musician, that you have done stand-up, you're
Renaissance.
an artist, you're a cartoonist.
Yeah.
Is this all, I mean, what's the drive? I mean, do you feel the drive to be a storyteller?
So that's an interesting question. When I was 5 years old and I discovered comic books, I wanted to be a comic book artist. So that was my goal. And by the time I was 16, I was assisting Ken Penders working on Sonic the Hedgehog for Archie Comics. So at 16, I achieved my childhood dream of working in the comic book industry on comic books. And I was young enough to have the energy and the drive, and oh boy, look at me meeting all these people. But I was smart enough to also see exploitation there of the fact that I wasn't getting paid really at all. And I'm not going to
Yes.
go too into it, but long story short, since that time, Ken Penders sued Sega and Archie for ownership to like 90% of the Sonic the Hedgehog universe in the comics, and won.
Yes, like all the spin-off character he sort of made. He created all those characters. Yes,
won.
yes.
Okay, that's the part that
Yes.
no one remembers of the story, is that he actually won. And so, like, Sega actually switched sides halfway through the trial process, because when they realized that Archie had sold them stories and characters that they didn't own for games that they made with Electronic Arts and stuff, then Sega felt had. And so then they joined Ken on his side and was like, you know, against Archie.
Oh.
And so Archie, one of the
Wow.
reasons why they're having all these, like, you know, Archie meets Predator, you know, Archie meets the Punisher kind of like storylines and stuff like that, is because they're trying to pay back the 6-point-something million that they owe Ken for exploitation of his stories and his characters all those years without paying him any dividends or royalties.
Wow,
And
I had
so,
no idea.
Yeah, I testified in that case.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, that was at 16 that I'm working on Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm going to comic book conventions, mostly San Diego Comic-Con, because I lived in Southern California, and I had already interned at Homage Studios under Jim Lee at this point. I had already like made zines. I was working on my web comic, No Stereotypes, at that point, like the first version that I did of it. And
that's around about when we met at Comic-Con, I think, around about 2002 or somewhere like
yeah,
that.
Yeah, but this was like 1998 that I was doing this.
Yeah,
and so, like, again, around 2001, 2002, No Stereotypes had originally run on Keen Space, which later became Comic Genesis, that's no longer around anymore. And it was good enough that I had a readership at the time of maybe about 70,000. And so Joey Manley with Modern Tales wooed me to Modern Tales. Oh yes, you'll get paid for it going behind the paywall. And that didn't happen. And my readership went from 70,000 to about 700. And
wow, so you really suffered from that.
Yeah,
Yes,
and so, you know, I mean, I met you, I met Shane and Garrity, I met, you know, Ryan, that I almost spent my life with and stuff like that. You know, I mean, I met a lot of good people through Modern Tales, but it just wasn't financially the right decision.
No, financially it wasn't very profitable, but you know, but yeah, and other people like sort of Gene Yang, Raina Telgemeier, you know, who came out of that universe. Yes.
Yeah, Dave Alvarez and I are still friends, who used to do Yenny. Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Right.
He just got hired at Disney as a lead animator on some show that's I think it might be a Roger Rabbit show. I'm not sure.
Ooh.
But yeah, I only know from like what he's been drawing. He's been drawing Roger Rabbit a lot lately. So, yeah. Anyway, so I digress. So yeah, I was doing web comics in like 2002, 2003. Late 2003, I left Modern Tales and I created my panel to panel website, where I was hosting at its height, like about 8 different comics from different people. And unlike Modern Tales, unlike Keen Space and Keen Spot and, you know, Graphic Smash and all these other things, I didn't have a prescription or a subscription. I didn't have ads. You know, I didn't have anything. I was just, here's pure comics, which also was not a financially good decision. And it got to a point.
You have some way to make some money. I guess you can sell books.
Well, it got to a point where panel to panel was still running off of HTML, and I was updating it every time it updated by hand. And so I was spending 4 hours a day updating other people's comics rather than working on my own. And, you know, I basically, I remember it was like $80 for hosting that I had to pay. And I didn't have the money because I was in the middle of college at the time in like 2007, 2008. So it was years later that I had panel to panel. And, between 2002 and 2008, I worked on a couple of movies. I worked on a couple TV shows and stuff like that. I have IMDb credits too. And then like I was an intern at O Entertainment, so I didn't know if I wanted to go into film or I wanted to go into comic books. I wasn't sure. I was still making my comics. And yeah, I basically I asked all of my people in 2007, 2008, hey, can you guys contribute like $10 towards hosting? And then this way we don't lose hosting, right? And no one contributed. And so I realized like I'm paying for hosting. I'm hosting these people. I'm spending all this time updating everything, and I couldn't even get like them to chip in for hosting their comics. And so I basically I was the asshole, and I went to everybody and I was like, I can't afford to host you anymore. And so you're going to have to find a new home for your comics. And so like the Gun Street Girl crew, which were the Coopers, Barb, Lean Cooper, and Park Cooper, and Ryan Howe, were all very upset that I stopped hosting them. And I was hosting.
Okay, then they got upset that you stopped.
Yeah, they got very upset that I stopped hosting them. They still badmouth me about it, about
Really?
the fact that I just
$10 a month.
Well, it wasn't even $10 a month. It was $10 for my 3 years.
Seems very reasonable.
I had hosting. It was like $80 for 3 years of hosting. I learned in the early 90s that the best hosting services were porn hosters, because they had all the protections against bots. They had all the protections against hackers. They had all the server space for low cost. And because I was a non XXX entity, the host that I had at the time, adult host, they like to put me up on their website as like, we're hosting this non-porn website that you can check out.
You're like legitimate.
Yeah, it's when you go to a host and they're like, these are people that we host. When you scroll down, my logo was one of the logos that they had, because they're like, they like to put me up there as, hey, you're not you're not doing adult stuff or whatever.
It's like when I worked at the video store, and the front of the video store was family videos, and in the back there was the blue room, behind the blue curtain, but like anybody could go in, because you might not be getting porn, and most of them weren't.
Yeah.
Oh yes, no, I remember that. Yes, and we had that at our local video store here, and even the little the bodega on the corner has a little back area. I haven't been in there in a while, but even like quite recently, they still had a little back area.
I was just getting some milk. I was just getting some creamer.
I was the comic in the front of the store, of the front of the bodega. Then that was like, hey, look at the good,
right,
stuff you have
yeah,
in here.
Come on in, we're friendly. Yeah.
So again,
I used to talk to my local video. We used to have an enormous video rental place in San Jose, American Home Video Center. And I talked to the owners one time, because they had an enormous, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, this adult section. And the guy told me that's where the money was. That was the profit. The rest of the store, that got people in, but the profit was the adult stuff. And it was so profitable. It was one of the few video rental stores that was open 24 hours. So I could go and play pinball, because they usually had about 5 pinball machines at like 3 a.m, and you watch guys go in and go straight to the adult section and then come out.
Well, in Minneapolis, when I lived there going to school, in downtown Minneapolis, there is a place on the corner of Washington, and I don't remember the cross street, that is Sex World. And it has big neon letters. It's open 24 hours away, or 24 hours a day, and it's called Sex World, right? And so it's an adult club, right? Attached to this adult store. They have they have this giant penis that that you can put quarters in and ride. And it's
awesome.
Well, the thing is everybody in Minneapolis knows about Sex World, even if you don't go there, because again, it's this landmark. And so
it's a tourist attraction.
You'll be giving directions to somebody to like meet you at some place downtown, and you don't want to say it. You don't want to say it, but they're like, turn left at Sex World. People, okay, I know right where to go. Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's I've been there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
San
Have you
Jose
rid-
has the
did,
pink
did you
pool.
put quarters in the penis?
I have ridden the penis. Yes. Yeah. They also, to give you an idea of just how upscale this place is, they also have a back room that has the little booths where you put in the quarter and then the light goes on the girl that's been in the booth the whole time. And she like does little poses for 5 minutes and then the light goes off.
I want to ride
That's
that penis.
It's
I just
there.
do.
Yeah, I've ridden it. They basically took a mechanical bull and they took off the bull and they put on a penis.
That's great. Oh man,
safe
that
enough.
alone is worth the trip to
You know,
Minneapolis. Is that where you
only
said
thing
it
I
is?
know about
Yeah.
Minneapolis is that's where they set the Mary Tyler Moore show. So I'm having horrible fantasies about
Well, here's an
Mary
interesting thing
Tyler
about that.
Moore going
So-
there.
So those apartments that they show Mary Tyler Moore that were like super modern back in the 60s with all the color and everything. They've since torn those down, but those were called the crack towers locally because they were basically like projects, and you had low income people there doing drugs and prostitution and trafficking and all these awful things, and they're just this landmark where it's like, oh yeah, turn left at the crack towers. That's what the locals call them.
Amber, forgive me if I changed the subject a little, because I mean, so far we've gone through cannibalism and this.
It's always a good touchstone.
What are the web
Batman as a cannibal is what we learned today.
what are the web comics that you like now? Because obviously Chuck's work. Are there any web cartoonists that you follow now that you think are valuable to look at?
May Dean, who does Real Life, is still doing Real Life, and she told a very important story, I think, which was about her transition. And so, that's not it's not a comic that I follow all the time, but I think it's one where if people aren't quite sure, or they don't even know where a trans person might be coming from, it's a great read because it's literally inside one of those people's heads as they're having that identity crisis and realizing who they are, and then on that journey as they become that person. And
since you worked in comics,
Mhm.
does your taste gravitate towards true stories like you just discussed in Real World? Or do you like the superhero or
They're both
kids
valid.
stuff? Okay.
They're both valid. Like Owlie is a comic that the characters talk in pictograms, and it's an age range of like 3 to 199. Anybody can enjoy an Owlie comic, and they're just simple little stories about friendship and love. And I'm a little worm and I got lost.
Andy Rumson.
Yeah.
He's a lovely chap. He's a lovely guy. Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's amazing stuff. So you have stuff like that, and then you have other stories like American Splendor done by Harvey Pekar, which when he was doing American Splendor, no stories of reality had ever really been told in comics like that before. He did a story called Who is Harvey Pekar, where he basically talks about, he opened up the phone book one day and he saw that besides him in Cleveland, there was another Harvey Pekar. And so he's wondering, who is this guy? Is he the real Harvey Pekar? Am I? And then after a while, there was a Harvey Pekar Jr. also. So there's the three of them in the phone book. And then after a while, it was just dropped to him and the junior, and people were giving him condolences about the death of his father, but he had never actually met this other Harvey Pekar. He was just a name in a phone book to him. And these are like little obscure thoughts that Harvey wrote down and he handed to R. Crumb, and Robert Crumb drew them up and they printed them out. And unlike a lot of comic artists during the comics days of the 60s and 70s and 80s and stuff, Harvey paid every artist he worked with. And he paid for them out of pocket because he was working in a records center, I want to say for the VA. And so he had a day job. And he would sit there and write his stories while he was at the VA and hand them to these artists and have them draw up the stories. And then, he would get them printed and distribute them out to shops himself. I mean, the guy had stacks of comics in his garage that he would, you ordered 3 comics? Okay, here's your 3 comics. And you send them through the mail. And like people don't realize how easy it is to put comics out there in the world now with the internet. You know, you just make a website, you throw it out there, you know, you throw it up on social media. Hey, look at my shit, right? But Harvey was going down to the copy shop and copying them down to size, you know, and sending that to the printer. Like he was doing the work himself.
Yeah, he's a bit unique as a writer because, like, a lot of times, you know, artist writer might do that, but yeah, so that he was a little unique in that he was sort of paying people. He was just that's doing it the right way. You know, I know a couple of people who are sort of currently paying artists, you know, usually like in the Philippines, it seems. You know, quite a lot of money to draw their comics. I don't know if that's it's complicated because you know. I think it, you know, like that way, sort of a little more independent way, you're working directly with the artists, get different artists, you're not too much on one artist, and then, you know, different people, you know, then when you work with a good artist like Crumb, then certainly like other artists are going to be like, oh, you know, they're going to give you some good respect and want to participate.
Amber, you're obviously familiar with R. Crumb. Who were your cartooning influences growing up? Were you into some of the strips or Mad Magazine, or who turned you on as a kid?
So I've always had a soft spot in my heart for The Far Side by Gary Larson. And
I love that.
And Calvin and Hobbes out of Strip Comics. Those were probably my two go-tos in the comics where I had to read Calvin and Hobbes. I had to read The Far Side. In comic books, I always gravitated towards artists like Jim Lee. But again, growing up in California in, you know, this tiny little town that had a tiny little comic book shop that couldn't afford every comic out there, they mostly had superhero comics from the American marketplace. And so I didn't really discover artists that blew me away until I was in my teens, and I started making trips to like the Mile High Comics that was in Orange County. And then, you know, it's like, wait, there's comics in Europe? What is this 2000 AD? You know, and it's,
you were reading some 2000 AD good stuff.
Judge Dredd. Oh my gosh, yes. Alan Grant died the other day. Alan Grant.
Oh yes.
Died. He wrote some of my favorite Judge Dredd comics. He wrote the Judge Anderson storyline where you know, she goes and she finds like the psychic guy in the hills that are, you know, causing all this chaos.
Oh, yes. Is that the Shambhala story?
Yeah, that's the Shambhala story. Yeah. And it, I mean,
that's a popular one. Yes.
It broke my heart to find out that he passed away. I mean, I know he also wrote.
He did some of my favorites too. I think he did The Art of Kenny Who, which I loved. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so like I discovered 2000 AD and stuff when I was in high school, and then like Heavy Metal magazine and stuff when I was in high school. And so I still collected stuff like Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell's art. I liked Greg Capullo, who at the time was doing the Angela comics for Todd McFarlane. You know, so I mean, I had all these American influences, and then I suddenly had this burst of European influences. And around the same time, manga was coming into the United States. So I had these influences from like Sailor Moon and, you know, Evangelion and, you know, Robotech and Dragon Ball Z. And so I had anime and manga and, you know, just this onslaught of all these different types of mediums from all over the world. And so like Katsuhiro Otomo, who does Akira, one of my favorite books by him is a book called Domu that he did before Akira. It's very similar themes about like psychic powers and, you know, government agencies and stuff, but it's about this like apartment complex, and this kid moves in with psychic powers, and then it's all of the like people attacking him in the apartment complex. It's a manga. But yeah, like that was the first time I really saw tight backgrounds, was with Katsuhiro Otomo's stuff. And then, you know, I'm reading Astery for the first time and going like, there's this really bouncy style. And I'd never even thought about Romans and Gauls. Began.
Oh yeah, no, we grew up on that. Yeah, that was.
That was exotic for me. And then when I was in Canada, I learned that the Duck comic books are the highest selling comic books in the world. like Donald Duck,
Oh, the
Scrooge
Scrooge
McDuck.
McDuck, yeah, the Carl Barks,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah, you see them, yeah, but they weren't so popular in England. But yeah, you go to France
Yeah,
or
and they're
Europe like that, they,
huge.
you know, they would be everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the first fall cons I did in Minneapolis after I'd moved there, I met Don Rosa. And so we were talking about the duck books and stuff, and he and I actually kind of befriended each other for a while. Like we're friends on Facebook and stuff like that. He since has lost most of his eyesight, but it was cool because I could send Don like drawings that I did, and he would correct my duck anatomy. You know, he'd be like, no, this is more of a round head. You're doing it more like an oval, and stuff like that. And so he was kind of cool. So yeah, more influences. So
yeah, we don't talk about duck anatomy on this show.
Well,
yeah, we haven't got
no, I'm not talking about.
That's a whole topic.
I'm not talking about the twisty duck anatomy. I'm talking about like the head structure.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, head structure, body structure.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that anatomy. We're not
the differences between Donald and Howard.
Yes.
Yeah, which is odd because they never had them wear pants.
Nope. Yet when they get out of the shower, they wrap a towel.
They put a towel. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
There's someone's doctoral thesis right there. Duck nudity.
It's very interesting because people forget that the Disney characters and even the Warner Brother characters with the white gloves goes back to minstrel.
Oh, we know what that is.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so yeah, and you.
Well, I never really thought about that. I suppose you're right. I mean, but also it's like, you know, I just thought it gave a little more sort of clarity to the hands when you're drawing.
That
it.
too.
Yeah,
that
right.
is what Disney says now, is that it gives clarity to the hands, and that's why they keep the hands white.
Yeah,
but the
and
truth of the matter is that
knew...
he was a minstrel character. Mickey was
yes,
a minstrel
and that's why the minstrels wore them, is to direct attention to the hands. But
I never thought about it, but you're right.
The lie now is that it's easier to draw a glove than it is to draw a hand.
Yeah, that's what they tell you now. There's a great comic called Three Fingers. Have you ever read it?
Oh, I think I have.
It's a comic that's done in documentary format. So as you read it, it feels like you're reading interviews with people. And it talks about Ricky the Rat and his rise to stardom. And basically the whole story of it is about the fact that he had this mutation where he only had 3 fingers on his hands. So all the cartoon characters after that, in order to be famous, would cut off their 4th finger so that they could be a 3-fingered famous cartoon character. And it's just what you do when you're a cartoon character in Hollywood. It's a very dark story.
Well, it's actually, you know, you draw less fingers because it saves time.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking at the illustrations of this.
Oh, of 3 fingers.
3 fingers. 3 fingers is pretty funny.
That one, like, what was that one? The Battle of the Breakfast Cereal All Stars or something. Do you remember that one? I love that one. It was so bizarre. I had like all Captain Crunch and everyone, but it was all sort of done in a more sort of superhero-y, quite dark style.
Amber, how many fingers do your characters have?
It depends on what I'm drawing. Captain T has 3 fingers, but Addie, who lives in the same world, has 4 because she's human and he's a small cat character. If I'm drawing realistic, they have 4 fingers. If I'm drawing something, you know, cartoony, 3 fingers is more readable than 4th. The 4th one sometimes can complicate the image. Yeah. And it just depends on what I'm drawing.
You see, Chuck, Chuck knows my religious beliefs. You know, Chuck, this actually worries me because I may have to cut off a finger off each hand if I intend to truly.
Well, I don't know. I think if you're more in the Marvel universe there. I mean, the Marvel characters have human anatomy, but yeah, you are quite a big nose cartoonist. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, well, it's your choice. You can do it either way. Asterix have 3 or 4 fingers? They have 4 fingers.
Okay.
Now I have to look it up.
I know I could get 3-finger gloves and wear them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Asterix has 3 fingers.
Oh,
does he?
Wait, 1, 2. No, he has 4. No.
No, I think
One,
I
two.
thought they had 4.
Yeah, he
I've
has
always
4
had a bit of
fingers.
difficulty with that 3 or 4. I've
Okay.
always done
Yeah.
4. I've
Yeah,
always
he has
done
4
I
fingers.
never
Well,
really
what
wanted
it
to do
comes
3.
down to is really peanuts. So, how many fingers does Charlie Brown have?
I think 3.
Yeah, and no gloves.
Really?
I may
Yeah,
have
round
to.
hand.
I may have to go to Harbor Freight and buy a
Nope.
bandsaw.
Charlie Brown has 4 fingers and a thumb.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Hang on, I better check this.
You can check it. I'm counting it.
Well,
1, 2,
what?
3, 4.
Sometimes it's a little abstract.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and a thumb.
Yeah.
Checking.
Yeah, he's got 4.
Yep.
Sometimes he sort of sometimes he'll sort of merge them a little bit, but in the way artists do.
Okay, I see him. All right. Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's to me 3 fingers. I get it, but I feel like I'm not really dealing with humanity when I'm on 3 fingers. And 3 fingers, you're in a sort of another world.
And I totally agree with that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted it for my story, Captain T, is because it is another world. I want it to feel like anything can happen there. Like, Eternia, He-Man, Eternia, right?
Yeah.
It's got magic. It's got technology. There's like ancient, like crumbling ruins in there from some other civilization that existed before He-Man civilization that they never acknowledge. They just, they'll just go to the crumbling ruins and like do an experiment. And like, there's battle cats and weird creatures and stuff, and it does not feel like Earth. Now, they have 4 fingers in that show, but it doesn't feel like Earth. You see a He-Man cartoon, and there's like a purple sky and like green mountains and stuff. You see one background of a He-Man show, and you go, oh, yeah, that's definitely Eternia. And I kind of want that ability to look at a single frame and go, oh, that's not Earth. That's this other world. And so even if it's just something as simple as I'm grabbing rope.
Yeah. Very good. Well, we've been talking a while now. I guess we're actually gone 2 hours. Yes. So lately we've only been doing an hour and a half. But with Amber here, you've been a great guest. Oh my God, that's been awesome. Oh my God, we've talked about so much stuff.
Oh yeah,
Can I have
we
the
did.
recap?
Yeah, Dale. Yeah, what did we learn today, Dale?
Okay, everyone, correct me. We learned about cannibalism. Don't eat people, kids. We learned about stand-up comedy and how bringer shows are bad. We learned about it's good to travel and experiment. We met Amber's daughter.
She's cute.
We learned
Little
about
Amber.
different
L-I-L
types of
apostrophe.
guitars and how it's important to have multiple guitars, and it's always good to buy a new guitar. We talked about how it is a standing rule in the show that we don't discuss duck anatomy. We discussed the possible origins of the 3-fingered cartoon hand, and we discussed that the Huon tablet is a viable alternative to Wacom Cintiqs, and Clip Studio Paint rules.
Yeah, I'm really happy with Clip Studio Paint. It has a perspective feature that you can do perspective with. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and I'm still learning the hotkeys for my keyboard, to press this one to lock it and press this one to unlock it and stuff like that. But we were talking about the 3D import function and why I have Blender. I have a Captain T is a comic I've been working on for about 12 years that I just sold to Keenspot, actually. Yeah, I know. Surprise. All this time, and I finally made it to Keenspot.
Yeah,
and
I don't know what that is, but I'm going to applaud. Yay, that sounds good.
Keenspot was Modern Tales' chief rival back in the day.
Yeah. Chuck knows. Anyway, Keenspot's been having some real success lately with selling their projects to Hollywood. They just had a movie come out called Marry Me, starring Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson. that was based off of one of their graphic novels. They have an animated show that's being developed for Netflix right now that's based off of one of their other properties and stuff. And so Chris and I have known each other for 25 years.
That's Chris Crosby.
Yeah, Chris Crosby.
And is Gav Blue, Darren Gav Blue?
Yeah, Gav's hasn't been with him for years. He hasn't been with him for like 15 years or so. But yeah, right. Chris and I, Chris had a call to action on his website the other day for looking for submissions. Basically saying, you know, they had closed submissions for about 12 years, but they were opening them, you know, because they had a couple of strips that were wrapping up and they wanted to put stuff in their slots. And so I've been working on the story for about 12 years. I have scripts written, I have a world planned, I have all this fun stuff. And I basically built a pitch and I submitted it to Chris and he bought it. And so I have to actually make the comic now. So so I'm starting a production blog. My plan is to get it up in August for the first one, but I'm starting literally at the beginning of me opening up the file of all the stuff that every time I wrote something down or I designed something, I shoved it in the file, of me opening that file and going through it and rediscovering my world that I invented. And then I'm going to continue going through from drawing this page, rewriting this script, you know, adapting these notes, and try and get people excited about it before the comic starts coming out.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, that's interesting. Yes, because I've written a sort of Poofle graphic novel, like the sort of kind of the origin story, really, of how Poofle and Tina met, which I never did back in the day, and I always thought one day I'm going to do it. And I've actually got to the point where I've got it all written, really, and it's sort of I should think about really next I need to draw it. Maybe I should pitch it to Keenspot. I mean, back in the day, they were like very focused on like a strip cartoon.
Yeah.
Or are they like, you know, or now are they like doing more like a comic book sort of format?
So back 20 years ago, Keenspot was again more focused on web hosting. They had Keenspot and Keenspace, and Keenspot was kind of their,
sort of anybody could put
Keenspace was just hosting, but Keenspot was kind of where they highlighted and stuff. And Chris admitted that they kind of split themselves into too many directions, you know, 20 years ago, because they were printing books. They had, you know, the website, they had the web hosting. You know, they're trying to do this and that, and they had so many baskets with so many eggs in them that they weren't able to like concentrate on anything. And so over the time, he's since focused where they still put out floppy comics, but the reason why they put out floppy comics is to build basically a numbers library of what sales are like, what kind of reaction is to things and stuff like that, so that they can take those sales numbers to Hollywood. And so they've they reformed themselves as is repackaging comics for other media, for you know, television and film and, you know, cartoons and adaptations and stuff like that. They've had something like 4 or 5 different properties in the last 6 years that have been adapted to television or movies or something to that extent. Right. And then Bobby Crosby, Chris's brother, he's become a millionaire on YouTube. He's got something like 4 million subscribers, maybe more. And so he makes his money mostly off of ad revenue. So he's done the production blog thing too for his properties. When he was working on Marry Me, which was that movie that was adapted for Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson, he basically showed every struggling moment of him scratching his head going, how am I going to fix this scene? Golly, you know, he literally put the camera on him writing, which writers never do. And, you know, people were, you know, rooting him on. So when the graphic novel finally came out, they all bought it, and they have those numbers to be able to take to the studio and say, look at all these people that bought this graphic novel. Look at all these people that watched this production diary of this graphic novel. Exactly. And so I know that seems I love the medium of comics, but there's no money in it. And it's a fantastic medium to tell stories, to be able to have
that's the problem.
It's almost the most naked communication between a creator's imagination and their audience, because it's like, here's pictures, here's words from my brain, there you go. You know, music is probably the other most naked kind of kind of communication of an idea. But the medium itself, the industry has kind of been self-imploding for the past 30 years. And you have books that are selling 10,000 issues from, like we're talking X-Men books from Marvel Comics that are selling like 10,000 issues. And those are the numbers that they're like, wow, we sold 10,000 issues. Whereas 20 years ago, that would have been well below the threshold to cut the book because it wasn't selling enough. And so it's Marvel Comics and DC Comics and other American comic makers are getting a growing share of a shrinking market. And so I see web comics as kind of where creatives at our level are going to be able to reach their audience most explicitly, where they can tell their stories any way they want without having to worry about the cost of printing them, or like Harvey Picard going down to the copy shop and, making your prints and then sending them by mail to the publisher. That's not the way anymore. Now you can just draw it digitally. You can live stream you drawing it. You can put it online and people can watch you live stream it and talk to you while you're doing it. They can put it online. They can like your little thing. And then you have these metrics, these numbers to take back to people with money that want to make more money. And you basically say, look, this will make
those
money.
people I don't like so much. Yes, I don't know. That always makes me a bit.
The question is, how do you monetize it in the meanwhile, while you are making this investment that you hope will pay off?
Good question. If you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, that was something that was brought up before the pandemic. They had the NCS meeting in Long Beach, and there were a number of web cartoonists who lectured. And I forget the name of the one he was one of the guys who wrote How to Make Web Comics. And he said that
Are you talking about Scott McCloud?
No, it wasn't Scott.
No, was it Brad Geiger?
It may have been Geiger.
Yeah, I know Brad. Yeah.
But they were talking about that the technology was changing so quickly that the old business models were falling apart. So the idea of selling advertising, he had now moved on to being supported by Patreon. And I see that with a number of web cartoonists. You're being supported by Patreon until you can create a book, which you do with a Kickstarter. I think I know someone who recently did that with a wonderful book called Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Yes, I just submitted that. I'm submitting that around now and trying to figure out how to sell it, and that's a whole other story for another show. But
I put my coloring book out through Amazon.
I saw it, Amazon.
Yeah,
it's easy. Yeah, it's easy enough to get it up on Amazon. There's a thing now called BookBud. I was just looking into where it's a sort of paid to promote, but it seems to be growing very popular for independent authors as kind of like a way to promote your book and get it out there. I don't know, there's sort of different.
There's Book Baby too.
That's a whole job in itself. Like selling your book once you've made it. I've got a sort of flagship product that I can really sell, and it sort of stands beside sort of other things that I have out there that do have good reviews.
Chuck. Yeah. Okay, listen to me. Invest in 50 copies of your book. Okay, buy them at the low rate of, the $3, whatever you can buy them at. Okay, this is how you secure yourself. You send them for free to libraries.
Okay.
You put them in libraries. Once they get listed in the libraries, right? Then my book's in a library, right? And then you take that to bookstores of saying, well, it's listed in these libraries. And that's a way of kind of circumventing bookstores, independent bookstores that are like, we're not going to sell your book because we're not sure it's going to sell. But if it's in a library,
I just first submitted it to School Library Journal for a review, and apparently someone told me that was very important to get it there because then schools will look at it as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. That's the one where schools basically ordered their library books from.
Like what I'm
Yes.
hearing here, and I've heard this in music for a while, is basically like if you want to get signed by a label, like a major label, they want to see the data on your success before. They don't want to, if you don't have any data, if you can't say like, this is my fan base, this is my social media following, if you can't show them those numbers, a lot less interested in you. And I mean, that it sounds like with the
Yeah.
library thing, you're talking about the same thing. Here are the numbers. This is actual data. It's not a pitch. My book's in all these libraries.
When I did comedy road work, right? This is back in like 2001, 2002. Like I was actually on the road. The furthest that I made it was Oklahoma City, you know, from Southern California, like basically going from town to town to town and doing comedy at like little bars and little comedy places and then driving back. And so when we did this road show, we were nobodies. There was 5 of us in the van, and how we built up
5 comedians in a van. That sounds like a
and how we built up hype over
There were
us
4
coming
at the
into
end.
town is we would call the towns that we were gonna be going through, right? We had no shows set up or anything, right? And we would call up a bunch of venues and say, hey, are you gonna have these people? I heard on the radio they're gonna be in town. Right? Oh, no, we're not having those people. Oh, I heard on the radio they're going to be in town. Right? So I call up a bunch of venues, and then I call up the radio stations, and I would be like, hey, are you going to have this person interviewed? I heard from this venue that they're going to be in town. And so I would then have the bars, the local venues and stuff contacting the radio stations saying like, hey, are you going to have this person interviewed? Can I get in contact with them to see if I could get them for a show? And I would have the radio stations contacting the venues saying, hey, are you going to, do you have this person? I'd love to get them in for an interview for the, you know, for the show or whatever. I had it back and forth. So by the time we got to Salt Lake City, we had like 2 radio interviews and like 3 shows for the week set up. And, you know, I know that's not the most honest way to do it, but we basically built the hype before we went
Could be
down
worse.
the road.
And taking people's money.
That's but that's what you have to do now is you have to build the hype before you do the thing. And so, or I'm trying to build the hype while I'm doing the thing.
So similar to music.
Yes, that's good. Well, yes, you know, and I have some track record with the other search books that have been done by the publishers, you know, that have got good, you know, like even Where's the Bunny in the UK was like a #1 bestseller around Easter time. So that's good. You know, so that's some good. But I also like this idea that you're talking about, you know, Bobby Crosby sort of, you know, just filming every step of the process. Maybe that's what I need to do if I start doing my new Pupil story, just sort of lay it all out there.
That's what I've started doing is I literally
and show more skins.
I have a I have a Twitch
nipple
channel, which is twitch.tv/artglitch. And so I don't even have a schedule on there. I literally just, whenever I'm working, whenever I get a chance, because it's hard to plan around the 1-year-old, you know, with her being 1. And
well, you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Yeah, that's more or less like I kept going with Pupil for a few years, but then once he got a bit older, suddenly my time seemed a lot more filled up with this and that and the other. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's fun. It's worth it. You know, now I'm coming out the other side. Then after a while, they don't care. They won't have it.
Amber?
Yeah.
They don't care what you do. So then you can start getting back to it.
You're new to Twitch, right?
Yeah, I just started. I started my channel like a year ago, and then I was twitching maybe about once or twice a month for a while, and then about 3 months ago I broke my wrist, so I had to stop twitching. I had to stop drawing and everything while that healed, and so my subscribership dropped from 15 to 10 during that time. But I have 10 subscribers on my Twitch. So
may I suggest something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good.
Look for a channel on Twitch called Cinema Insomnia.
Yeah.
And look for on Facebook Mr. Lobo, who's the host of the show, because they stream a channel on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And both he and his wife are artists and cartoonists.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a good networking opportunity for you.
Oh yeah, you never know. I got a lot of. I'm kind of invisible in the comics industry, but I know a lot of people. Like for this comic that I'm doing, this Captain T, I have secured variant covers from Bill Sienkiewicz. Mike McNoll is going to do one for me.
Wow.
Gosh, I got Jay Fosgett is going to do one. Dave Alvarez, who I've mentioned before. Matt Bush, that we were talking about. I used to sneak into that portraiture class at Art Center that Drew Struzan taught, and that's where Matt and I met. And I was not a student at Art Center. I just used to make the 3-hour drive and sneak in and pretend I was. And so when Drew found out that I wasn't actually a student there, he still let me attend class. It was like our little secret. But yeah, so Matt is going to do one for me. And then, Frank Stockton is going to do one. I asked J. Scott Campbell because when I first was an intern at Homage Studios, I was there when he was just Jeffy, and he came in with his portfolio in one hand and his suitcase in the other. And oh boy, I made it into comics. And so, I used to peek over his and Jim Lee's shoulders when Jim Lee was showing him how to draw a comic page. And
comic bitch.
Well, J. Scott Campbell, basically, he didn't pay attention. And so the stuff that Jim was saying where keep your 3-point perspective shots for big moments and stuff like that. He'd try and do a 3-point perspective shot for just two people standing in a hallway, and it slowed him down as an artist. And that's why you don't really see him do sequential stuff anymore. And so he does mostly covers. So I contacted him and I was like, hey, you want to do a cover for me? And everybody else is willing to do a cover for $300 because they know I don't have a lot of money. I'm paying for it out of pocket. And even Mike's yeah, 300 is good, right? Mike McNoll is willing to do it for $300. But J. Scott Campbell wanted $1,500.
Wow.
And I'm I cannot afford that. Thank you very much.
Well, you have to think about it as will that many more people buy the comic because he did it? That's why they pay Tom Cruise the big bucks. People go see it.
Yeah, but
even though he's an evil Scientologist,
the variant covers is just because Chris says that variant covers sell better, and it's always good to have your first issue so that way you can bump up the sales numbers, because if you sell multiple versions of the first issue to one person who wants all the variant covers, that looks like you sold it to multiple people. And so that's his reasoning behind having the variant covers and stuff like that. But I remember when I read comics, and floppies and stuff, I always felt cheated by the variant cover, because it's the same material on the inside. It's why would I buy a whole issue for a whole other thing? But that is the standard practice in the comics industry to bump up those first issue numbers, is to have the variant cover. And so
interesting.
Yeah. So again, I'm if I'm going to have variant covers, and if people are only going to buy them for the cover, then I'm going to get collectible artists. So David Mack has agreed to do a cover for me. I have Dino, which is Dean Haspel. He used to work with Harvey Picard. He did Hubris and what is it? Ego and Hubris, I think, was one of the ones that he did. No, The Quitter. He did The Quitter with him.
That's a great name.
But Ego and Hubris was a different artist. I think that was Aaron Zolan. Yeah.
It just makes me laugh.
Yeah, so that's kind of the reasoning behind it. And it's going to take a while to do the variant covers. It's certainly going to take a while to pay for them because, again, I'm paying for them out of pocket. Since last year, I've been unemployed and just being mom, trying to fit in art when I can and trying to fit in commissions when I can. But it's, it's feast or famine, and it's been famine lately. So, my lovely husband has been making enough money to be able to.
Yeah, he's working away. That's good. Yeah, we heard him at work. That was good.
We heard him making money. He must have been making some money during that.
Yeah, he works for a company called Our School Today that makes educational software for schools, community centers, places like that.
Oh, great.
So it's organizational software. So, for example, facility schedulers, trip advisory schedulers, it has all the information for all the kids and all the rosters for all the sports. You can do your game planning really quickly.
Or like Team Snap or something.
Exactly. I think that's one of their competitors.
Yeah.
But he's been with this company for 8 years, so he must be doing something right.
Right on.
Good. Yes. Well, yeah, it helps to have a spouse with a decent income if you're going to be a cartoonist.
Income,
That's my advice.
decent. You know,
Or some sort of income.
when I was working in a
Something a little
dispensary,
more
we were
regular.
okay.
Yeah.
When I was working in a
Yeah.
dispensary, we were okay because I was making tip money. And, you know, I was making like $100 tip money a day. And that was our paying down debt money. That was our, oh no, the car blew up money. That was our, you know, oh, am I pregnant? You know, I guess we're going to have to pay for these doctor's appointments money. And
You're supposed to tip at a dispensary?
Yes, when you tip at a dispensary, because you are when you go there, there's people's knowledge ahead of you, and when you say, "Hey, give me something that'll make me sleep," or "Give me something that'll make me feel really creative," or whatever, they're going to use that knowledge to find you the right product.
I never got tipped at the Genius Bar.
Well,
That's
that's because
against
Apple's
Apple
evil.
policy.
People assume
Yeah.
you're being paid enough.
Here's
already,
another
I think.
thing,
Apple's
too.
policy.
Most tips at dispensaries too go straight into the pockets of the bud tenders, and not into the pocket of the corporation. So it's untaxed income. Whenever the
Oh, it's my favorite type.
yeah, whenever the inspectors and stuff come in, they would always hide the tip jars. You know,
Build up your store of treasure, not on earth but in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but when I was working there, I was also working 40-hour weeks. I was working 4 10-hour days. So even though I had 3 days off, I was exhausted those 3 days because, again, standing on your feet for 10 hours. And yeah, I was a bud tender and receptionist there. And it just got too much with the 1-year-old. And so I had to step away and be mom and take care of her. And I've been trying to do the art thing.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding.
Amber,
but,
do you think that you will
you'll also
switch?
be a lot older by the time you're done with it.
What?
You'll age doing it. You'll find that 20 years will go by, and you're like, oh, I feel a lot older now.
I'm going to be 40.
But it'll feel like 30.
You'll be 40 soon. Yeah,
I'm going to
well
be
done.
40 next year.
Where are you, Amber? Like we
I'm
never
in Denver.
asked. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Amber,
I was just like thinking, where's the weed business booming? Could be, yeah.
I'm in Denver.
Well, was Colorado the first state?
Oh, you're in Denver. Yes, you're in Denver.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
Denver,
great.
Denver, Colorado was the first state for recreational.
Yeah, I've got some
California
land.
was the first state for medical.
Yeah.
I have a commercial grower right next to my property up in Lake County, and
that must be pungent.
well, yeah, I mean, not as bad as you might think. He's a super cool guy, and he let me sample the product, which I'm not much of a smoker, but man, it knocked me on my ass. But that's a big thing in Lake County right now. I think he did extremely well for a couple years. Now it's changing a bit, but
yeah, it's what I think is important about it is, even though starting with medical, a lot of people were like, yeah, I have medical, wink, and they're just doing it for recreational purposes and stuff like that. There really are medical benefits to the plant, especially when it comes to stress relief and anxiety and
glaucoma,
end of life.
Palliative care, as they call it.
Yeah, it really helps with that. Same with psychoactive care, like hallucinogens have just been legalized here in Colorado. Oakland's
made mushrooms
decriminalized.
Yeah, Oakland's made mushrooms legal.
Decriminalized, yeah, that's different.
Yeah, mushrooms are no? That, and I know that they just passed legislation in the House. I don't know about the Senate, that is going to make mushrooms and LSD available for end of life diagnoses.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so again, losing my father last year, I saw him at that time, and I think something like that would have really helped him get over the fear of his impending mortality. And he was certainly scared, and it wasn't something that I'm not like, here, Dad, take this acid, but I admit that I brought a rosin pen to Florida with me, and I gave it to him to help with his pain in this last few days. And
You
so
brought,
that
you brought to clarify, you brought
Yeah.
a rosin pen that was empty with nothing in it to Florida because we're talking about that on this chat.
somehow a rosin pen
you do a
ended up
Mickey
there.
Grinder where you accidentally put it in your bag without.
Yes, good.
Yes,
You
yes,
know-
accidentally put it in my bag
With
without-
nothing in it. Got it.
with-
Okay.
with
The
nothing in
FBI
it.
is always in the chat on these things. We forgot to
But-
tell you
The
that.
FBI is monitoring this.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
always in the
Actually,
chat.
Amber,
It's such
I-
bullshit.
Can you imagine
It really
how many
is.
people you'd have to have at the FBI
not to change
monitor?
the subject, but I am, as a mother, as a busy mother, because you have a 1-year-old wandering around. Are
Yeah,
you
be
going
careful.
to stick with the desktop and the Huon tablet, or have you given any thought to giving yourself something more mobile that you can work in these little spaces of time, like an iPad, because they can run Clip Studio Paint?
Procreate seems to be. I think Procreate is an Apple only product.
Well,
For
you can get
for
Clip
Apple's and stuff.
Studio Paint for an iPad.
Again, that's another Apple product. Like, if I got a tablet, it'd probably be a Samsung tablet or something.
Yeah,
like
that's what I
or,
should have
or
said.
I might get a Surface with Microsoft or something. I'm not sure.
No.
Why not the Surface? Why not the Surface?
Entrig stylus. Stay away from it.
Okay.
Go the Samsung route.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I've been pretty happy with my Samsung products.
Okay.
I got a Samsung phone. It's an older phone. You can see here it's like all broken because I have a 1-year-old. Yeah. So.
Yeah, like my iPad, that's all broken too. So
Yeah.
I've got it's a nice safe case now though.
I've
Well, I had it in there anyway. But
I've
I dropped it
considered
downstairs.
doing doing tablet work and stuff like that. And
Go watch
what
that
I
guitar.
find
it might come
is-
down on,
The guitar.
on your kiddo.
Yes.
Don't want it to come down on your kid.
okay.
All right. Well, I think we have to call it a show now.
Yeah.
This has been going on. This has been going on. It's been great. Amber, you're an awesome guest.
You're an
I hope
awesome
you'll come
guest.
back.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's
Please
a
come
wealth
back.
of information. Thank you,
Yeah,
Amber.
I'm a wealth
Yeah.
of useless facts. I could bore you about anything.
No, some of it was
No, not
useful, I
at all.
think.
No.
Please come back.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. We loved having you on, and yeah, well, we already did what we learned. We just had a lot of bonus time there, but yeah, we've been at it all morning. So
Yeah.
great, good times, everybody.
Yeah, it'd be
We'll
fun
be back again.
it'd be fun to be back. I know I didn't we weren't on one particular topic, where
No,
we're discussing like the existential dilemma of mankind or whatever,
Kids, don't
Yeah.
do drugs. Buy
we do all
guitars.
sorts of yes. Maybe
Don't
music.
talk about Duck Anatomy.
Again, I was just talking about
Now
the
I
head
just want to
anatomy,
talk about it.
the body anatomy, not the twisty anatomy.
Oh, and don't eat people. Don't eat people.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on
Well-
the circumstances. If you're
If they're prepared, if
if
they're
you're out
prepared
in the middle of
correctly.
the ocean and there's like nobody and somebody presents the lottery, you don't want to be the winner of the lottery.
Okay.
But anyway, it sounds like you're saying I need to include some cannibalism in my next story. Yes. It needs to be.
And some
Well-
duck
Needs to be a
anatomy.
Here's a factoid, and then we can end the show. Okay, the Donner
Yes.
Party here in the United States, when it happened with the Oregon Trail and going out west and everything like
Oh
that.
yeah, the Donner Party.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
Donner Lake. I'd
discovered-
like to go up there for a little swim and a paddle. It's
Yeah,
lovely up there.
It was discovered by the Mormon Calvary units. Like they were the ones that came across the scene and had to write back to the commanders and stuff. Hey, we kind of found out what happened to the Donners.
Were they all gone
Yes,
at
not
the
to be
end?
confused with the
No.
Donner kebab, which is a
No.
popular.
No, there's
after pub snack.
the Donners had 3 survivors. There was a little girl, a woman, and then a boy that was maybe about 12 or 13 years old. And so when the Donner Party happened, that happened over the winter, and so it was the next spring that they went up
It
there.
wasn't actually a party.
Well, they
Yes.
went up there the next spring because the kids and the woman made it down to another settlement in the winter. They basically were like, that's it. We don't want to be up here where all this awful, eating people is happening. We're going to make a break for it. And they actually made it to civilization. There was a party of 5 that left the Donner Party, but only 3 of them made it. And so they basically had the recollection of where the party was up in the mountain pass. So when spring came and the snow melted, they let him back up there, and they're like, "Yep, this is what was going on. This is why we left."
This is why when
so
you're
they
on
really were
road
having a
trip in
party.
California,
I just thought we should come full circle to cannibalism.
Yeah.
When you go to Lake Tahoe and you drive by Donner Pass, always make sure that you have gingerbread men in the car so you can eat them and scream while you're driving past it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Family tradition.
Yeah, here you go, kids. Here's your Donner Party gingerman.
Here's the funny thing, too, okay? Donner, the guy that actually led the party up there, was warned by the natives and then the local settlements on the eastern side of the pass not to go through the pass. They basically said it's going to snow in, you're going to get stuck there. There's no way you'll make it to the other side in time. And he's like, nah, I can make it. And so
all right, I got my carving fork knife.
Yeah. And so the Donner Party was originally something like, I want to say it was like 50 people with wagons and oxen and horses and everything like that. But he only took a party of about 25 people into the pass because the other people were like, if they're saying don't go, let's not go. So about half of the party that didn't go into the pass survived. And then those 3 that actually made it down to the settlement on the other side. So these guys on the east side had no idea what had happened until almost 2 years after it had happened.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, they must have been English, because if you said to a bunch of English people, we're going to go on a Donner Party, they'd think you're going to eat a lot of kebabs and have a good time.
Yeah. But I actually just finished reading a book about frontier life, and it had a whole chapter about the Donner Party. That's why I know such weird factoids about it. Also, Ken Burns did a great documentary on the Mormon Cavalier group, and basically how they were promised their promised land by President Jackson. Oh yeah, go out there and you'll have your own country. We found our lake. We found it. The Joseph Smith, prophecy that we would have here. What do you mean this is Utah now? Yeah.
Oh.
Amber.
Well, yeah, they had to give up being polygamists in order to become a state.
They did not give up becoming polygamists.
Well, I know they didn't know. I saw that documentary. There's a good documentary on Netflix. There's a few good documentaries on Netflix. There's also Michael Pollan's one about, changing your mind about using psychoactive drugs, which we touched on. I'd recommend that. But as well.
Yeah.
You realize, Amber, if you come back, we're like about 3 episodes away from this becoming a cannibal cooking show.
No.
And Duck Anatomy Workshop.
Duck Anatomy. Yeah.
Duck Anatomy Workshop.
Oh God!
All right,
best episode ever.
Now I'm curious why there's an X-nay on Duck Anatomy.
Only from Dale. I want to talk about it all day long.
We were talking about Howard the Duck, and there's a love scene in it.
Yeah, with him and Leah Thompson. It's really creepy.
And we all know about.
It's gotten very horrible at this point.
We all know about duck evolution.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Which is kind of strange that it's now common knowledge in. I assume they teach it in schools.
No, I think that people just when you find out about a corkscrew penis.
No.
Pigs have them too. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Pigs have a half-hour-long orgasm.
No.
What? Damn, I feel ripped off now.
Yeah.
Pigs.
This is the world's worst Richard Scarry book.
Well, I was just watching a good Doctor Who where the Daleks were making humans into pig slaves. So, I guess there were some benefits to that.
Yeah. How many times has Doctor Who done that storyline? Like they did it at least 3 times before the 10th Doctor, rebooted the show.
Well, I've been binging through. I started right at the beginning, so I've gone through all the Doctors, and I'm currently on like David Tennant seasons. And
that was the Dallas.
Tennant was my favorite.
Martha was my favorite assistant, and it's held up. She's still my favorite assistant. I think that season's great. Yeah.
No, Tom Baker forever.
Tom Baker forever.
Well, no, he was great. Yes. I love Tom Baker. He's good. Yeah, I mean, he's still probably my favorite Doctor. Although I kind of love them all at this point. It's hard to choose for me, but Tom Baker I grew up with. But I always liked Martha as an assistant. I thought that sort of the second David Tennant season, I think, is a great season.
I like John Harkness. It's just too bad the actor became such an awful person. John Harkness. Maybe you haven't gotten to him yet.
Captain Jack.
Yeah, Captain Jack.
Oh, did he? I don't know much about it. Yeah, I didn't really. I never saw Torchwood.
Well,
so I don't know
the actor.
I wasn't too keen on him.
The actor was like groping other actresses and like taking his penis out on set and stuff when he was working in Warehouse 13 or whatever it was. Torchwood. Torchwood was the show that he was on. Like that. And and so he had issues like that, and so they killed his character. I think I never watched Torchwood, so I don't know what they did to his character, but they.
Torchwood Children of Earth is very scary. I recommend that one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes.
We can't end the show, can we?
Yes.
I just
found
found
half
something.
hour or an hour deeper in the show than we've ever gone.
I'm
Maybe.
very talkative sort. So.
I'm just gonna put something in the private chat that I think everyone's gonna appreciate. Because I can't put it in the public chat.
Now I gotta
It's
see
a great
this.
It's a great product.
I kind of want one now.
What a great product.
Oh my God.
I kind of want one now. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I do too.
Yeah.
Scarred emotionally.
So yeah. Let's see.
This is supposed to be a fun podcast. I thought it would be, Amber's like a mother and draws webcomics. I thought this would be
sweetie. I used to draw smut comics to pay for my tuition for college. Yeah.
Cool.
I had a naughty art name. I worked for Eros and Slipshine.
Oh, I remember Eros.
Yeah.
Eros.
Yeah,
Eros
I
comics,
did artwork for Rear Entry and Jugs. And anal and all of those.
Rear Entry.
Yeah, that's the name of the comic. Yeah, and the way that Eros, the way that Eros's model works is Eros and Fantagraphics are the same company, and so Fantagraphics, the reason why they're allowed to get away with all these like independent art books and stuff like that, and we got the license to reprint Peanuts, is because they make their money from the smut, and so Eros, what they do is they'll literally pay for like maybe 3 to 5 stories a year, but they keep reprinting those stories over and over and over again, and they'll mix them up. And so like if you get a Rear Entry from like 1986 and a Rear Entry from like 2005, you might have the same 2 stories in it and then like 5 others from that period of time because they just keep reprinting
read
them.
the story.
Does Eros still
so does AT&T. They make most of their money off it. VHS won over Betamax.
Well, Eric Larson, not Larson, excuse me.
The internet wouldn't be the internet without it. I mean,
yeah.
That's just human life.
Your child has something on her head.
Eric is basically explaining that the reason why they can get away with this with Eros is because people generally only buy up to like 5 porn comics in their life, right? So they're less likely to have repeats from buying those 5 if they buy them this year versus this year versus somebody that might collect all the collection. There aren't collectors of smut comics really, and those people are very quiet about it if they do. And so
right there, to be so excited about that one.
And so so if you have Eros comics, you probably have some of my artwork, under Amelia.
Wow.
Do they still exist? Do they still publish?
Yeah, they still exist. Good luck getting paid by them though. They Fantagraphics, like I said, and Eros are the same entity. And so Eros is the cash cow that pays for all the Fantagraphics books.
Yeah.
So Fantagraphics, they will promote all of their art books. They'll, look at, again, we got the Peanuts license. We're reprinting, Milton Caniff. We're reprinting Toth or whatever.
I have to ask Chris a question here.
Yeah.
Chris, is it the same in the music industry? Is there like a porn section of music that's like, like cheesy organ music or something that
it's
really
called
where all
jingles.
the musicians are really making all their money?
Yeah, it's called jingles.
Well, I
Phil
think what
Collins
labels
has
do.
made more money from jingles than he ever did from his rock career.
Who? Phil Collins?
Oh yeah, from jingles. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So jingles are the porn of the music industry.
What I think did happen with the traditional labels is they'd have one or two stars there, and the stars basically bankroll everything. But they bankroll the artist development and everything else under them. I think it's completely different now.
Or
I didn't know
in the
Phil
case
Collins.
of like Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin, they basically had all these studio musicians and they said, let's get these kids together, and bam, Led Zeppelin.
Journey was also a bunch of established like sessions guys. I didn't realize that.
The
Yeah, I
Monkees
didn't really
were
know that about Led Zeppelin.
studio.
I think the Eagles were people who worked in other bands.
Yeah, Joe Walsh was pretty successful on his own.
When like the Beatles, I mean, they weren't that, but when Paul died, they just put in the fake Paul to keep the band going.
There was a fake
and
Paul?
then they got really famous. Yeah.
Don't
right,
laugh.
Chuck's gonna try to.
They had to do a lot of porn.
Chuck's gonna try to end the show again.
They did play in like porn clubs in Hamburg, didn't they? They played in like quite.
Amber, does that industry still exist? Because I thought that I remember growing up, and there would be the curtained areas of comic book stores, which have been since gotten rid of. I mean, isn't that stuff all online now? Or
are you talking about comic book stores, or are you talking about like?
I'm talking about. There was a time in the late '80s and the '90s where you would see comic book stores have a section that would be adult comics, European import erotic comics, and underground comics like reprints of Crumb and
there's always going to be
Freak Brothers.
There's always going to be naughty comics. Here in the United States, it's considered smut, but over in Europe, it's just considered another genre of comics. You go to Italy, and sex comics are right there next to Uncle Scrooge. But here in the United States, you do have artists like Jim Ballant, who used to draw Catwoman back in the 90s, who basically he just makes his smut comics now, and it's just anatomically impossible women in sexy outfits fighting with magic that rips off each other's clothes.
But
and you're always going to have that aspect too.
Well, how are they distributed now, though?
In Jim Ballant's case, he basically has a dedicated following that buys them directly from him. From his website and stuff like that. And then he does the Patreon thing as well, where he will do limited runs of like maybe 1,000 per issue that go to like his top Patreons. And then his other patrons have access to the digital copy.
Okay. Like I'm a huge fan of Hunt Emerson. I don't know if you know who that is.
I probably have seen his work.
But it's difficult for me to get his work in the United States.
Yeah. It's like ElfQuest. ElfQuest has a lot of sex in it, and
bikinis.
Yeah. And when you find like old copies of the traits and stuff like that, it still has those pages in it. But if you're buying the reprints, they've since replaced those pages with more G-rated pages, or what they did in some cases is they kept the dialogue balloons, but they blocked out all the action, so you only have silhouettes.
Got it.
Yeah, and so again, that's an American thing because we can't have sex in comics that possibly look like something.
Well, it's American thing. Another thing that comes straight from England, really. It's old English Puritan. We're not like the Europeans. The Europeans, you go over there, anything goes. But in Britain, we're like, oh no, that's naughty.
One of my favorite comics.
But we still do it. Then we're even more naughty behind the scenes. That's the problem.
England is a socialist nation, so England is a socialist nation. Isn't all reproduction in England done in labs and stuff?
It's not socialist. Why? I mean, it's no more socialist in this country.
Really?
I mean, apart from the medical system, it's got socialized medicine.
I think
You
it
know,
is
the same
more
people, there
socialist.
want to get rid of it. You know, they want to get rid of it all the
Okay,
time.
well, I've been
you know,
told that England and Canada is a socialist. They're socialist countries. They're all part of the New World Order.
As someone that
just-
lived in
well-
Canada, yes and no. So if you're a Canadian
Canada's more
citizen, you have
socialist.
access to the socialized medicine, but because I was an American citizen, I had to actually like pay for insurance. Some people do pay for insurance up there. That's a medical insurance that covers things like massages and chiropractic and other kind of extra stuff. But you know, everybody's covered up there unless you're not a citizen. And one of the things that Canada does that's a little nefarious is all of their Indian reservations, all of their native reservations and stuff aren't considered Canadian like territory. So people that are born on the reservations aren't considered Canadian citizens. This way they can deny medical access to natives because they're not Canadian citizens.
That sucks.
Yeah, we do that here too. But I mean, there was never an assumption that you would get medical coverage if you were a citizen. It's like worse.
I mean, there's other issues up there too. Like there's a huge die-off of Native women up there. There's been several serial killers that have been killing them along Canada's the Canadian highway that goes like across.
Oh, the highway.
There's a podcast about that, and I think there's some movies about that as well. All these missing Native women.
Yeah,
they don't
care. Here in the United States, there's actually legislation that's going up to the Supreme Court that I'm keeping an eye on, because what it's going to say is that it's okay for federal and state officers to go onto Native land to get criminals that committed offenses on Native land. Okay, and this is really threatening to Native rights because that's their sovereign territory. But it's a complicated issue because a lot of them don't have the money to actually police their own territories. So what you have is, like, for example, in California, I lived near an Indian reservation called Pechanga that has a casino on it. That's the Pechanga Casino near Temecula, California. And when I did crime scene cleanup to, because a girl needs to eat, we would clean up a serial killer.
Crime scene cleanup as well?
Yes, I did. We would clean up a serial killer all the time in Pechanga. It was always like the second or third story, and it would be one of the corner rooms of the building right across from the stairwell. And so there was always no cameras. The guy knew right where to do them. And he would basically take these Native prostitutes to these corner rooms where it would minimize the sound. And by it being 2 or 3 stories above the ground, he could just take the stairs down without anyone really noticing him. And so there's probably about 4 or 5 different deaths that I cleaned up of this guy. And because Pechanga didn't have a police force, the casino literally had us in, clean stuff up. They would rip out the carpet, put in new carpet, and then rent out the room. They didn't do anything.
Has anyone seen Wind River? It's a movie based on this type of thing.
Yeah,
like Native
I
Native
did
killer.
see that one. Yeah,
It's a pretty good movie. I gotta say.
This is the
That's
best
quite a good
episode we have
movie as
ever
well.
had.
I'm an interesting person.
You are an interesting person.
I'm just committed to this 24-hour
Facebook friend
episode.
request.
Okay, I'll have to respond to that when I get back to my Facebooks.
Yes, you probably should, because you guys have often you post similar things, and there'll be a lot of mutual agreement there, I would think.
We could share recipes.
No.
I don't use the Facebook. I'm on the Facebook, but I don't use the Facebook.
Recipes.
Unless it's a cookie recipe. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
does your daughter
Well, I
like
think,
cookies?
Yeah, we should listen to the natives, though. We need to listen to the natives. They can teach us how to live in this country and not stop acting like British people.
Well,
living in and trying to make everyone in this country live like British people.
Again, I've been reading. I'm in the middle of the people's history. I'm in the middle of the people's history of the United States, right? And it's talking about the dichotomy between the native peoples that lived here and then the European conquerors. And so, like, for example, when Columbus actually went to the Caribbean and he, and his ships were coming to the Caribbean, the natives swam out to him to greet him. And they were they were very welcoming. They're like, here, have lobster, have crab, have all of our foods and all of our dishes and stuff. And the way that they were described, the people that wrote in their journals and stuff for Spain, that now we have these journals and these are our records that we have, were calling them fools for living these lives of basically laziness and luxury, where it seemed that they weren't working throughout the day, yet they had plenty of food and plenty of time. And how come they weren't industrial? How come they weren't, stripping their land and taking all the resources? And like, these were the questions of the Spanish conquerors.
Yeah.
They were also described.
These are the questions that we actually need to think about. So I think it's very, very important, really, to think about that.
They were also described as good potential slaves.
Oh yeah, excellent slaves. But they were harder to enslave than Black people. Not that Black people were hard to enslave or were easy to enslave, because they were hard, but they were the easiest group out of all of them.
Unfortunately,
these people
they were themselves
when they came to the New World.
Well, that's because they were removed from everything they knew.
Themselves to the Europeans. That's the problem. That's why it was a little easier, because they had that was quite in their culture, and they were quite happy to sell themselves, or not, sell each other.
That's a misnomer.
To the Europeans. And the Europeans were like, okay, you want to sell us slaves and give us slaves? Okay.
So that's a misnomer. The way that slavery was handled.
That's what Henry Louis Gates Jr. was saying on his show, The Great Civilizations of Africa.
Yeah. But what he was also referring to is the way that slavery works in Africa is it's more like indentured servitude in Europe.
Oh, yeah, I understand that industrial slavery was quite a different thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that slavery is understood,
very, very horrific.
The way that slavery is understood in Europe is this is property, right?
Yeah.
So the person was still considered a person under African idea of slavery, whereas the person was considered chattel or property under the idea of slavery in Europe. And so, yes, you did have tribes and stuff that would go and gather their enemy tribe and then sell those citizens to European slavers, but they did so with the understanding that it would be this limited period of time that these people would be slaves, and then they would be freed in their new land. They didn't know that they were selling them into basically a lifetime of servitude and the slavery that we know today. And so there was a huge miscommunication there between the two groups of slavers.
Sure, it wasn't intentional.
Well, and I definitely recommend that show, though. And The Great Civilizations of Africa, Henry Louis Gates Jr., Obama's friend.
Okay, so if we update this episode, what we've talked about so far is make money doing adult comics, even though it doesn't.
But don't put your name on it.
I'm on it.
Don't put your name on it. Slavery.
If you're broke as a cartoonist, you can always get money as a crime scene cleanup.
Scene cleanup person.
It pays well. I got paid about $35 an hour.
Well paid for cleaning up shit. That's that's the way to make money.
Well, on the bright side, that prepared you for the body fluids of motherhood.
Well, the crime scene cleanup was it was an awful job. I worked from 2 a.m. to noon. And most of the jobs that we did were hoarders or old people that died in their homes, or like a pet hoarder or stuff like that. Like, we did crime scenes as well. There was a couple of serial killers I cleaned up, but there was one serial killer that was only going after pedophiles. And he did this thing where he would...
Oh, like a Dexter.
Yeah, Dexter.
Totally like a Dexter. So what he did is he would make friends with these pedophiles on an online group called NAMBLA, which is the North American Man-Boy Love Association, which is like this awful group where all these people talk to each other and they try and convince each other that pedophilia is like the thing to do, and it's not. And so he would make friends. He would make friends with these people. And then
cannibalism.
And then he would convince them that the way to get close to children is through children's entertainment. And so he's like, oh yeah, you can be a clown. You can do this. You can do that. I'll send you clown makeup to get you started. Well, in the clown makeup was ricin. And so these people that would put on like clown faces to practice their clown faces and stuff, it'd take about 20 minutes and they'd be dead on the ground in clown makeup. And so I cleaned like 4 of these guys up in Orange County. And
wait. You
Why was
cleaned up
this- why
after
w-
dead clowns?
Dead clowns. Yeah.
Why wasn't
And
this
the
a
thing
huge
was,
like
the
national
thing was,
story?
the FBI guy that was like looking at this, he would be like, I'm like, are you looking for this guy? And he'd be like, not there.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
why isn't this been made into a movie or something? This seems
Well,
like
they
movie
caught
material.
the guy a couple years ago. What's interesting about serial killers and stuff like that is they don't like to give a lot of details to the public, because then you can have copycats. You can have people that just want attention and claim they're a serial killer. And lead the police away and stuff like that. So when they caught this guy,
them now?
I'm sorry, what?
Well, I mean, it just seems like they've done that with so many. They've sensationalized so many things, but now it's like they're like, oh, but not this time.
Well, again, they caught this guy a couple years ago, and they talked about the fact that he, in the media, the fact that he had made friends with people on NAMBLA, that he convinced them about the children's entertainment, and that he would poison them, right? And so that's what they released in newspaper articles, and I went, "That's the guy! That's the guy! They caught him finally!" Because they knew how they poisoned him.
I've seen his work. I'm a big fan of his work.
I can't say I'm a fan of his work. I'm just glad that a lot of kids weren't hurt.
But there's,
I mean,
he committed death by clown.
Death by clown.
It could have gone wrong, very wrong.
Yeah. Death by clown.
Yeah,
Okay,
but that could have gone really
nose in
wrong,
the
is what
car,
I'm thinking.
Man. I'm scared to put it on now.
What if that guy put that makeup on anything but himself, like a kid or somebody he knew joking around? I mean, it could have gone really wrong.
And again, I think that's exactly why they caught the guy, and they're like, "You can't do this anymore. No vigilante justice. No, no, no."
Well, it's like the Unabomber thing, where you just put this thing out there and you don't know who's going to open it. It could be like a secretary, it could be a mail carrier, it could be like so many other people.
It took him so long to catch the Unabomber because he made his own switches.
I watched that story, the doc that they made on him, and they caught him because his own family recognized the manifesto. They were like, "Hey, that sounds like Bill."
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like Bill.
But
FBI.
like, you buy like a vacuum cleaner or whatever, it has like an on switch, right? Well, he would actually build the mechanisms for his own switches, so they couldn't track him back to the materials that he was making his bombs out of. And so you're right. It did take his family recognizing his manifesto and his writing style to say, "I think that's Ted."
Yeah, I think that's Ted.
Yeah.
But he was such a he was kind of living like a scavenger hermit and just like kind of scavenging the most primitive stuff that was available to him. So
here's insult to injury. Okay. Ted Kaczynski
exactly
still teaches math classes from his jail cell.
He's a damn good teacher.
He actually, when you watch that documentary, he did sort of, he did. I mean, he was a complicated character. He did, there was some sympathy for poor Ted. I mean, he did some terrible, terrible things, but
the man needs help.
He didn't get the support that he needed, and really,
he got bullied academically.
Yeah,
he got bullied when he was really young, going to school, and but I think he did take a turn with like mental illness.
Amber, is the whole clown thing why you don't care for makeup?
No, that was
a joke.
I worked at Disney for about 4 or 5 years. I worked at Disneyland as a princess and as a mascot character.
Which one?
Whoa!
I was Belle and I was Ariel, and then sometimes I was Snow White if the Snow White wasn't there, or I was Aurora when Sleeping Beauty wasn't there. So I had to learn all the songs.
And you didn't put that in your stand-up?
I have stand-up about it.
But the costume, you didn't wear the costume?
The costumes weren't mine. They belonged to Disney.
Yeah, but you could buy generic princess costumes.
No, I have a character that I did for my stand-up called Princess Naughty Pants. And I definitely adapted some stuff to my stand-up routine.
Okay.
That was that. But when you work in Southern California and you're forced to wear pancake makeup every day for like 4 years, it was terrible for my skin. I had awful acne, but because I was a princess, I had to keep my skin clean. So I had this like insane 2-hour daily regimen for my skin. And it's kind of like when you over bleach your hair, and it just got too sensitive to stuff for a long time. And so I just I'm like, I don't have to wear makeup. This is a societal thing that says I have to. Fuck society. I can do whatever I want.
No, okay. We will talk about duck anatomy. We will talk about serial killers, but you can't use the F word because this is for kids.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and
But
guys,
if you do,
guys,
it's okay.
if you want to wear makeup, you can wear makeup, but don't wear free clown makeup that gets sent to you in the mail.
From
But
NAMBLA.
hopefully
From your
that's
NAMBLA
not going to
friends.
happen.
Yeah,
If
no.
you're not a member
Yeah,
of NAMBLA,
we're
not a
okay.
member of NAMBLA, please turn yourself into the police.
Yeah,
right
and if
away.
you find a dead clown, you don't know what killed it, so don't eat it.
No, don't
Yes.
eat it.
Don't. Yeah.
No.
All right, that's.
I think
yeah,
it
fair
would
enough.
taste funny.
Ah!
That's a good close right there.
All right. Okay, that's it. Okay, I'm officially ending the show.
This
That's
is the
3 hours.
greatest
All right.
episode ever.
Good,
Please
goodbye,
come
everyone.
back,
Amber, we'll
Amber.
have you back. We'll all be back next week. So see you then, folks.
Don't eat anyone.
Bye,
kids.
everybody. Thanks, Amber.
Bye-bye.